So Jax,
Yeah?
we watched 4 movies this week.
Yes.
The King of Comedy, Taxi Driver, Strawberry Chocolate Vanilla,
Yeah.
and Joker. And I think what we really wanted to talk about at the core was Joker.
Yeah.
And then these peripheral 3 movies became it became a lot more interesting as a result.
Well, the movie Joker, before it even came out, before they probably started shooting it, I've known that it's going to be like a Scorsese movie. At one point they thought they were going to get Scorsese, I think, his involvement was going to be way more. And everyone was like, it's going to be a Joker movie, but it's going to be set in like 80s Gotham, but it's going to have like a Taxi Driver, King of Comedy kind of vibe. So forever those movies have been an obvious, and then when the movie came out, kind of, just reference point discussion, because with Robert De Niro's casting, he's very obviously like referencing those. And then Chocolate, Strawberry, Vanilla, because when I watched Joker the first time, I was like, hey, this bit of the movie is that movie. But no one's seen that movie, so I thought it'd be really fun to add this movie to the discussion board. But yeah, do we want to start maybe with Joker and some first thoughts and then delve into it?
Yeah, I guess so. Although it feels hard to even talk about Joker without talking about everything else.
Yeah. So I mean, how do you want to start it?
I don't know. Chocolate, Strawberry, Vanilla. Maybe start there. It's an obscure Australian film. It came out in 2013 or 2014.
Around there,
Yeah. And it is very, very, very reminiscent of Joker.
Oh yeah.
And this weird maybe sub-genre of genres of...
Lonely man who wants to find girl but then gets obsessed with a fan of some sort. And becomes over-obsessed as a fan for some celebrity.
Yes.
And all of this mixing and spiraling and
into
descending. And
self-destructive.
And there's always some kind of explosive finale that is horrific to witness.
And in all 4 of these movies, the characters, it seems like, are rewarded.
Oh, yeah.
For, I guess, their unique outlook, which isn't wrong, but is kind of framed in a very strange... I don't know how to feel about this way. And Joaquin Phoenix actually said the thing that attracted him to this role was, I don't know how I feel about this character, and that's interesting to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's not black and white with him at all. It's very complex, I think all 3, I think there's 2 Scorsese and Joker end and kind of reward them, I think, a lot stronger. In Chocolate, Strawberry, Vanilla, the end doesn't feel as, it doesn't feel like society is like, hey boy, you're alright. And he doesn't get that kind of gratification. It's kind of a weirdly uplifting ending in a lot of ways. His naked march up the street and the embrace of his true self. But after that moment, I feel like, I don't think the news reports and the general public are going to be like, yeah, you killed that fucking drug dealer or whatever. You beat the shit out of him. Everyone's going to be like, he murdered a man and is insane. Whereas a lot of the others, or all the others, society, like especially the 2 Scorsese ones, society, like they're my favorite part of King Comedy is the end where he just does a terrible monologue with his terrible comedy. And I remember being like, this is not how you end a movie. You don't end a movie with this much bad jokes, because I've forgotten everything I saw. I've literally forgotten what movie I'm watching, and I'm watching bad stand-up, and I'm kind of confused, and I'm a bit annoyed, and just kept going, and I'm like, ooh. And then society gives him his book deal, and this and that, and he's got his own talk show, and he now is Jerry Langford, or whatever, something like that. And he gets more than he gets so much more than he deserves, because they reward this kind of insane man that did something insane. And I think, I don't feel the same with Chocolate, Strawberry, Vanilla. It doesn't kind of... I don't know.
It doesn't reward the character the way that these other movies seem to. And they're not even really clear-cut, direct links to what they wanted. I mean, it's obvious in King of Comedy that the reward at the end is not even about... It's not about his comedy. It's about the fact that he stole a show and performed and became a spectacle, and that people seem to be attracted to the story more than the comedy.
Yeah.
And they play the film that way too. So I don't even really know with that movie what they were trying to say. I feel like it was maybe clearer in Taxi Driver, definitely clearer in Joker.
Hey, interesting, because I think that with all three, it's kind of like because when I heard that King of Comedy and Taxi Driver was very similar, I'd seen Taxi Driver for a joke, so I was like, I understand the vague ideas, and with this and that. With King of Comedy, because it was like, man is obsessed and wants to get on the talk show thing. Joker's nothing like that. He has a talk show guy that he kind of idolizes, but it's not in the same obsessive fan way. And this obsessed fan wants to be Jerry. He wants to be the talk show guy. And he sucks, and he's pathetic, and he does a really insane thing and kidnaps him. But the world rewards him in this... I don't know. It's just... I feel like it's very clear cut that, like, those two movies with that, and the same with Taxi Driver, where he gets rewarded for murdering the shit out of Harvey Keitel's slimy... Oh, also, Harvey Keitel in that movie, he just keeps wiping himself. The whole time he's like, hey, get out of here, he just keeps wiping weird parts of his face, and that really freaked me out. And I'd forgotten that. That was like the biggest standout for the movie, is that he was disgusting. He was wearing those high pants.
Yeah. I got like a weird Tommy Wiseau vibe.
Oh my god, with the long hair and that like...
Yeah.
Oh, I can...
And the pale face.
Yeah,
and I don't know, like the Harvey Keitel, I was like disconnected. I'm like, oh my god, this is the same guy as in Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, he's a very weird performance from him. I mean, get away from that. But like, that movie rewards Robert De Niro for being a murderer. And then like, King of Comedy rewards him for kidnapping that guy. And he gets rewarded so much that he takes over that show. He takes that, I don't know, he takes the exact slot. But people are watching him. So it's like, I don't know, Scorsese is like, here we go, society rewards the criminals. We're rewarding the anti-heroes. We're like rewarding the villains. We like... I don't know, he's saying something about that. And I think Joker ends with the same, like, this man just murdered some fucking rich cunts. Like, he just did something awful. He murdered people, but because they were rich and because of the world that they're setting Gotham in this world where the unrest is building, society at the end is literally cheering him. They're like, we got him. This guy even saw the cop car. I was like, I'm going to fucking smash that cop car. Hopefully he survives. And they reward him and they're like chanting for him. And so it's like, it feels the same. Whereas I think Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla, it tells the same lonely story. But I think it's the only one that really doesn't like...
go out of its way to reward the character.
Yeah, it doesn't kind of shape society in that same... Because like, he's got the same thing with Taxi Driver where it's like the slime, he's like the grossness. And the same as Taxi Driver, murders someone in that kind of drug, criminal... that just gross underbelly of the world. And yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what I was trying to say there. But I just think that what Joker did, I think really clever at the end is like kind of... I love that. That was the only part of the Joker that I felt was really strongly reminiscent of King of Comedy. Because I actually feel like they were both wildly different films. They just happened to kind of have a talk show host in it with Robert De Niro in it. And that ending with that rewarding and that like... rewarding them psychologically and having them be like, it was worth it. What I did, evil or not evil or bad or not, it was worth it. Which is a really intense thing to like reward your evil, not evil, but like your anti-hero character who hasn't done good things and doesn't necessarily feel like they should be rewarded. But in Joker, I'm more sympathetic with him because he's just so sad and lonely and the way they've treated him feels so brutal and real. Whereas in King of Comedy, he's just like...
completely unlikable.
So unlikable. The first scene where he's just like, he's like, oh, I'm going to protect you from the over-obsessed fan. Like, oh, if that fan, he took it too far. But then he slides into the car and he's like, you want to hear my comedy? And
just two sides of the same coin, really. And then you find out they know each other.
Oh, that really, I was like, oh, of course. My actual biggest thing was like, oh man, like the start of the film was like those hands up with the fan. And it's like King of Comedy, all the titles come out. And Robert De Niro's like looking in. I'm like, is this him looking in to see like how a fan acts badly? Like this fan's taking it too far, so he's going to learn how to slime his way in. But it's like, no, he's the only obsessed fan. I mean, she's obsessed too, but he's almost using her obsession to get what he wants. Yep. And then later he does the same thing by having a fan go in and distract them so he can slink her in. Like he keeps, I don't know, he's just... The scene that really made me go, I just don't care for him is the scene where he wants to give them the tape or they tell him to get there, and he keeps going to the reception. He just sits there. He's like, I'm happy to sit there, like, come back on Tuesday or whatever. He's like, no, I'm happy to just sit here. It's like, that's not what they said, bro. Like,
I've met people like that.
No, exactly. It's like, it felt so real and so like, I don't know, pathetic seems so brutal, but the way he's presented, like I've never felt Robert De Niro is anything but what he parodies in Meet the Fockers and Meet the Parents, which I saw as a kid. He's always an old man who's grumpy and was in the CIA or whatever. He's always been that. King of Comedy was the first thing where I was like, holy shit, he can act. He can actually make me feel completely different emotions, completely different feelings. Because he's slimy, but not in the way I've ever seen him be slimy. He's pathetic, but in this just real, just way, but in a way where...
This entitled...
really... Yeah, it's like, he made, like, he wants to be a creative, he wants people to like them, and it's like all these things that are good, like, but he doesn't feel like he's doing anything. He's not going to comedy clubs and working on his act. He's not... We don't see him do any comedy till the end, and it's all fucking so bad. I guess that was the point. But... He seems so obsessed with actually getting there for that 15 minutes to have that, like, everyone loves me. But I feel like he doesn't want to work hard to get there. Feels like he doesn't actually want to get there. I feel like he doesn't deserve it when he gets there, which makes me so...
He's attracted to the spectacle and the shining lights and the feeling
the idea
of fame.
The idea that society's created on fame, like this. Jerry Lewis, the actor.
So Jerry Lewis was a very famous actor / comedian in the 50s, 60s, and then watching him be essentially the legacy character. And then Robert De Niro working off him, which is obviously echoed in Joker, where we then have Robert De Niro in that role. And the new, I guess, somewhat entitled character in a weird, different...
Yeah.
I think the big takeaway that I got watching Joker again, and especially the order I watched these 4 movies... Joker was last because I knew that was what we wanted to...
Yeah, that's the core of it. It's like a Joker and what inspired Joker, films like Joker, just these lonely man stories.
Yeah. All of the ideas we see in both Taxi Driver and King of Comedy are kind of recycled and repackaged in Joker.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like any of them are fleshed out as well as they are in these other 3 movies. In that there is a split focus on like the aspiration of comedy and fame, the mental health, the crumbling society, all of these things kind of running in tandem.
And it's a bit mixed.
The movie's not really about any of them. It's a character study about this character who's obviously the most famous comic book villain of all time, but has... only seems to be kind of tangentially linked to that character.
They've taken the face paint and the name Joker.
And the laugh. And then remixed it.
But remixed it so much that I could be totally wrong. As far as I'm aware, this is the first time Joker's laugh is a mental illness. It's a mental illness because his stepdad beat the shit out of him because his mum sucks.
Yeah.
Or, was unfit for being...
Mentally ill.
She's mentally ill as well. But also, I don't know, she sucks.
Yes.
He killed her and I was like, yeah, fuck you. You fucked this guy up. If someone had made me have that laugh, I'd be like, fuck them. Because that shit sucks and it's brutal and it's... the pain he gets when he does that laugh.
The choking almost.
I'd actually forgotten how hard it was to watch. I remember when I left the movie the first time being like, he laughed a lot. Maybe too much. I didn't feel that at all. Every time it felt... this brutal, painful thing, and then that moment when he realizes that he wasn't born with this. This wasn't the way he was born. It's like someone did this to him. Someone he thought loved him helped do this to him. And that moment, I don't know, to all these things, it's like, this doesn't feel like the Joker to me. It doesn't feel like a maniac. The idea of Batman being in the Joker, in 20... I just can't imagine...
I think what we see here, the thing that does tie it back into the Joker for me, and it might be the clunkiest line in the movie or close to, is when he goes to suffocate his mother and he says, I always thought my life was a tragedy.
But it's a fucking comedy!
And that really is the I suppose, outlook of the Joker in a weird way.
That kind of perversion of what a comedy, what a Joker is. A laughing man, a man for the comedy. and that like twist of like that classic comedian saying where they're like, all comedians are really troubled, dark individuals just trying to make people laugh because everything's so sad, which can be true, but I think it's like such a heightened perversion of that, the Joker, that you are right, because they're taking the same outlook. I guess when I think about the Joker, I always think of like the opposite of a Batman, and this guy isn't the opposite. But for me, some of the best parts in the Joker movie are like the incredible use of the makeup and the iconography. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. I
was like, that worked. Because like, I missed the start in the cinema. Fucking went with a friend who doesn't care about missing the starts. So aggressively annoying, like the idea that I missed the start. Because that first scene where he's just there, and he's getting the makeup on, and he's like, and he goes in the front, and then he forces it up with the makeup, and there's one tear going down with the makeup. It's like, that for me, I was like, yeah, I don't care that it's weird they kill Batman's parents in it. It's weird that, that Batman's in it, that he does that to Batman later, all this stuff. But that visual of like picking this character and then that makeup and just what a clown does represent, it's like that shorthand of what a clown represents and how they're twisting it and using that for like the sad clown. I think they use it so brilliantly in the movie. And then, I don't know, at that point the makeup feels like, I don't know, it's just so scary. But then at the end when he puts on the makeup, and he's finally like accepted this is who he is in that last 15, 20 minutes or whatever. It's like...
They earn it.
It's exactly, they earn it so much. And then they're so clever to do little things, like not overuse the full makeup and costume. Like he's getting ready when he, like the guy who's...
Bad guy and True Detective.
That's who it is! Oh my God!
I gotta say, just on a side note here, when they inevitably make the Harvey Weinstein film, he has to play Harvey Weinstein. He has to. Put a wig on him.
Yeah, he's got that.
He's a little bit younger than Weinstein as well, so he can do age into it. And
you're doing 5 years stuff.
Exactly. They will make it, and I want that guy playing Weinstein.
He's fantastic.
I mean, and he can do it. He can do it.
His demeanor, the way, like he doesn't do it in Joker at all. He doesn't bring that kind of menace and intensity that he can sometimes bring. But I love that guy. He's so good. And that scene though, when he comes in, he's like talking. He's like, "Oh, we're best buddies." About the cost of the stuff, but the way that, like, even just the simple stuff where he's got his hands there and he's only put on the makeup, so he's kind of naked. He's wearing his gross underpants, but he's kind of naked. So he's like in that transition period where he's getting there, but he almost wasn't there yet. He doesn't know they're gonna come over to switch, but like I don't know. And that white makeup and that one shot is probably one of my favorite shots where he looks up and he's just a little mannequin.
Well, there's a real...
It's truly unsettling.
That shot, the depth of field is so shallow that like even his body is out of focus.
Right. Is that what they've done to create that feeling?
He's overextended his neck, and there's a real clear separation between the white face, which is perfectly in focus, like tack sharp, and everything else is blurred. Like his shoulders, everything. It's just so like extended out. I really, really noticed it a lot more this time. Also, just the eyes not being done.
Right, is that maybe,
really like makes it unsettling and inhuman in a strange way when he kind of looks up and there's like a dark... I don't know, the darkness is emphasized because his face is so pale white. And, I mean, you see, the hair is just in focus when his hair's kind of down, and then as
the wet hair as well, because he's just done the makeup. Like
they do a lot of that. The cinematography in this film is really, really
looking film.
It is, yeah. It's all very, very kind of shallow, and the focus is always just perfectly pinpoint, right on the eye. And they did such a fantastic job. I don't even know the name of the cinematographer, which is a
I
disgrace.
didn't look up any of that kind of stuff. I wish I should have, because when rewatching, I remember being like, every aspect, like if I got rid of the story. I really like the Joker, but it's like if I got rid of the story, this film is perfect. Like I think the way it is shot, the way it's lit, the way the mood is created, the fucking music, like it's like harrowing but like deep and painful. It's the strings and the deep cellos and all that stuff is very Game of Thrones. It reminds me of that kind of just that haunting kind of epic scale, and just I think the music in it like is my type of music. I really, really love it. But that with like the visuals, and then Jacqueline Phoenix's performance, which is just I can't stop looking at him. Like it was the same when I watched Her. I was just so captivated by his performance. When they originally cast and they were like, we're doing a Joker movie, it's going to be a real dirty Scorsese Joker movie. I was like, okay, I don't care. Like, okay, sure. Then they're like, we're casting Jacqueline Phoenix. I'm like,
whoa.
The dude in Her who made me care about like a sad man who falls in love with his iPod? Like...
I'm in.
I'm fucking in. Like, perfect casting. And I'm aware that he's done all these other weird roles where he's like, I'm going crazy on all the late night talk shows for a year. It's like, he's just a wild, weird guy. So I knew that casting was good. And then when they first did that, like, release where there's like the Joker and he was just kind of standing there all like... And he does like he just does a little eye twitch. It's a makeup test that they released. And I just remember seeing him stand there and he just like a little...
It's projected over his face.
Yeah, and it does a little... He's just done this weird little thing with his face. I just remember being like, yeah, like, you got the guy? So honestly, I think if this story was even 50% worse, or if I hated every story element, I'd still find the movie engaging in the way that everything else, like, who Todd Phillips brought on, they're just bringing such high levels. And, like, I mean, the music might not work for everyone, but for me, it's like, that's my kind of music that, like, that strings and cellos and just that kind of orchestral dark feeling.
I said earlier that I feel like a lot of the ideas in Joker are half-baked.
Yeah.
But I guess now, after hearing some of what you've said, it does almost seem like it's okay. Like, there are so many kind of ideas that they're toying with here to really flesh all of them out properly. The movie turns into a 3 or 4 hour.
Yeah, like, it's hard to focus on that.
Does it matter so much what's going on in Gotham? Or does it matter that he's the point at which things change?
So, like, for instance, because you said one of my biggest issues, especially the first time, and this time it was almost more of a like, that's funny, I can accept that, is... And the biggest one is, like, he's on the fucking train, and we go through the train a little bit, down, like, to focus on him. And you just see, like, a white at some point, and, like, there's, like, 10 people with newspapers, and, like, the newspaper article is just, kill the rich, a new movement? And it's like, yeah, newspaper articles are, like, flashy and headlining, and you could be making a point there being really dumb and bland. But I remember being like, kill the rich on a newspaper feels like something I would put in my student film when I was 19, because I think I'm the greatest filmmaker ever, but I'm not. And sometimes subtlety is hard to find though, because I understand he wants to create this broad world, and Gotham feels very over the top, and it's very intense and dramatic, but rewatching it again, I think the unrest and the poor people against the rich is like, it's there, it's simmering, but the character of the Joker that we're following in every scene, he's not even really aware.
I'm not political. He says it a few times.
Yeah, they're like, oh, why are you wearing the makeup at the end for the rally? He's like, oh, that's not on. He's like, do you not believe in that? Like, oh, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in anything. And he doesn't. He accidentally, like, 3 rich guys attacked him. If they had been 3 poor guys, you know what he would have done? He would have shot them. Because he was just kind of reacting. And he just happened to have the gun. But they were rich. And he does kind of go, fuck Thomas Wayne, but because of a personal thing to do with him thinking Batman's his brother for like half the movie. Yeah. And then the ultimate reveal that his mum's lying, his mum's crazy, and all these things. So the reason he hates Thomas Wayne isn't because he's a rich guy. He hates him for a lot of personal reasons. Maybe the rich thing can come in a little bit. But the reason he hates Thomas Wayne, other people in society can be like, yeah, fuck the rich, because of their own personal thing. And the reason they're... And so I can understand this whole... I kind of love on the second watch that the society around the movie isn't really fully fleshed out, because it's kind of what he's seeing it from. Every time he steps out into society, everyone's fucking wearing clown costumes. Everyone's going mad, and he's like, I did this. You know, when he's walking there and they're all chanting at Thomas Wayne's thing, he's just wondering, like, what the fuck?
The movie might have almost been a little more powerful if he'd shot another guy that wasn't reported on at all, or something like that occurred.
Do you mean he shoots like a poor person? Like
someone else got tied into it and didn't get any press, might have driven that home a little further, because I saw what they were going for.
But you think like it's a bit kind of shallow in the way that like, because I like that it's kind of touching upon these aspects, and it kind of all crescendos and builds to this character's final moment. I mean, I don't want to get into the end bit after he's on the car, because I have a lot to say about how I think that actual end is handled. But in terms of just before that, with he's on the car and they're all like chanting and rewarding him, and like society's like, we're on your side. At least 45 of us crazy guys out in the street.
Dispossessed.
Yes. We're, like you're not alone, I think is like, I don't know. And mix of emotions at the end, like how he's kind of, I don't know, he's like crying and he's happy and he gets the blood. He's like, fucking, yeah, even just, I don't know. I don't love the Joker movie because, like, I don't know. I don't love, yeah, it feels like they slap it on a bit. But then when I see things like that and just the visual element of that, because it's really, like, kind of gets me somewhere. I like kind of forgot that it got me when I first watched it. And I was like, I think I was like slowly like,
It's hard because I want to say that the Batman and Joker elements hurt the movie, but I don't really know if they do. I don't think they do because it's not really a Joker movie because it's not really the Joker we've ever seen before.
Yeah,
so
it's a what if story.
It takes, the kind of archetypal elements and then applies them to a new setting, taking inspiration from, films in the 70s and 80s and remixing those elements into this new thing. And it's almost like the Joker, Batman, Gotham stuff is just there to ensure that we get people in to see it. I don't want to say that because...
but it feels, especially on a rewatch, it really feels like...
You didn't need it.
No, because Thomas Wayne is only Thomas Wayne because Batman, Joker, Gotham. And it being like, we're in Gotham, everything's dark, like there's crime everywhere. It's like, you could just be like, this is New York, this is Detroit, this is Los Angeles. It could be fucking anywhere, and we'd be like, yeah, I mean, it's just an exaggerated crime level, or exactly what it's like. The touches of that, because I remember being like, Todd Phillips doesn't feel like he was like denying. He's like, I pretty much just slapped the Joker over my mental ill movie, so they'd give me $50 million and everyone would see it. And then he made $1 billion. So who's laughing now? But it's, I almost think that when I first, I don't know, sometimes I think about it, I'm like, it feels a bit annoying that like he just slapped this huge icon, like the biggest villain of all time. He just slapped it on this character that's unrelated. But I actually think it's a really, really clever use of taking something so, more than anything, like people who've never read a comic ever, never seen a comic book, they know who Batman and Joker are. Like, everyone does. And so you're getting in that audience, which is just, that's how you want people to watch your movie.
Yeah.
And so, but then, I don't know, it's not just to slap the makeup on, but to then be like, okay, let's build this up. It's like he's sad. And then using that comedy, and it's the same as there's a line in King of Comedy where he's like, I always thought my life was a bloody tragedy, but now it's a fucking joke. And it's like using that like, oh, I'm sad, but I want to be happy. It's like playing with those things, but like, I really think some of the choices in the movie of just the visuals are fucking sick. Like, even just the little stuff where he's fucking dancing about in the children's hospital as a clown, and then the gun falls out. The tension the next time I was watching, every time his dad was like, it's gonna come out. And it just, I don't know, the perversion of this, like, I'm just a party clown. Like, I think it's used really cleverly, and yeah, I don't know if it is. I think it's a pretty genius move. I really love that they have taken this character and given us this movie that is essentially unrelated to the Joker, just has a man who laughs with makeup on. And if this was called, I don't know,
We Live in a Society by Todd Phillips, I
was thinking, it's like, there's that clown, like that guy who dressed up as a clown and murdered a fuck ton of James Jones Gracie or something. That's way off. Okay, well, there's a really famous clown killer. And I remember thinking, if this movie was called that, I'd probably just be less likely to go see it, because I'm like, I don't want to go see the movie. So I don't know, it gets me in, it gets me excited about seeing like the Joker, because I don't know, it has that short, I don't know, that cinematic shorthand where it already, I don't know, I think it...
Do you think the fact that a lot of comic book films feel so kind of derivative in a lot of ways, and people are discussing a lot more how they're becoming sick of the formula?
The cookie cutter kind of like, everything's the Marvel formula.
Like, we kind of go straight to, they've just slapped Joker on top and that's no good, but then isn't that better than just doing exactly the comic book?
Well, for instance, the last Joker thing I saw was the... actually, no, it wasn't. But the last Joker thing I remember seeing is they just remade the Killing Joke into like the animated thing. Yeah. And it's like, apart from all the stuff that they add at the start, which I don't want to get into, the actual just movie itself, it's like, it's fine. But it is exactly the same as the book that I read when I was like 15. And I was like, probably could have just read the book again. Because it's there. And this is taking... so I think... I don't know, my ideas kind of change, like, flicker on how I feel, but I think really, like... I love the idea that, like, this is like a... Do you know what this actually reminds me of? I was going to mention it fucking last week, but I didn't. When Uncut Gems started, he gets the gem, not right at the start, but it's like 20 minutes in, he gets the gem, and it's green, and we start zooming in on the green rock, and I was like, I would fucking froth so hard. You couldn't understand how happy I'd be if this movie turned out to be a Lex Luthor, what if, like the Joker, like a what if story about Lex Luthor, and Adam Sandler was playing Lex Luthor, and this was Kryptonite.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean? That was just, it was a straight thought. Not that I really wanted Uncut Gems to go that way or anything, but I just remember thinking, that's kind of what I like about the Joker, is that he's grabbing this thing that I love. I love my big things that I've loved as a kid, but then giving me just this totally different thing with it. And I like, and because comic book movies is just, it's the big hot thing. It's the Westerns of now, you know, it's what they're making. It's what they're making with the big money. And he made
it's what people want to see.
And he made a $50 million movie about a mentally ill man who ends up shooting someone, and that's it. And then he ends up in hospital. That's it.
And overturns society almost.
Yeah, and he creates like a revolution or whatever, unintentionally by killing some rich people. It's so just this own thing. But then he's like, how do I get people to fucking see this? And he picks the perfect character. I feel like it wasn't just someone like, well, Joker makes money. People like The Dark Knight. It's like, well, Joker doesn't necessarily make money. Suicide Squad probably made a bunch of money. But my feelings of the Joker before this came out was like, I don't know, maybe slow down.
Yeah.
Slow the fuck down. Because the last Joker was the most awful thing in the world.
It was just not thought out.
It just felt like they were picking the Joker and being like, put the Joker in because Joker people love Joker. This felt like he really crafted it into the story.
Well, that's what I would love to know. And I don't know if he said, but did he start with the bare bones and add the Joker? Or did he start with the Joker and then work out how to work up to it?
Yeah, it's
through the lens of that. And I don't know if either or changes my opinion of the movie.
It'd just be super interesting.
Like if you just found out that he wrote the whole movie and then pitched it to Warner Brothers and they said, we love this, but no one's going to see it. So just change
this rich cunt's name to Thomas
Control
Wayne.
F. And then replace John with Joker, and we'll make a movie. Would that detract? I don't know.
Whoever, if that's the case, whoever said to him you have to put the Joker in, he deserves half that billion. No, he doesn't. He deserves that whole billion.
Yeah, probably.
Because that's the only reason it made the money it made. Not that it changes. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the fascinating thing as well. I don't know if it made no money, it'd just been a film, but it made $1 billion fucking dollars. It's one of the most profitable movies ever made. It's the most profitable R-rated movie, and these things don't really matter, but I think it kind of does, just in terms of like, it's the reason people went to see this mentally ill movie. There is a movie Jacqueline Phoenix was in like 5 years ago that's the same movie as this. I actually have forgotten this until now. I wish I'd remembered this week because I would have watched it, but I haven't watched it because it's just a movie about a sad man, and it's called like A Man Who Walks Down the Street or whatever. You know, it's just got a name or whatever. It's like No One Was Really Here. I think it's called No One Was Really Here, actually.
Right.
Which actually sounds really cool. But I don't know. I can't remember what it's called. Pause. I'll get it out on my phone. I don't know what it doesn't matter. But that movie apparently is exactly the kind of same thing. I mean, I haven't seen it. I could be totally wrong. But like, I remember someone being like, it's the same kind of plot points of like, it's an isolated man who's alone. He doesn't fit into society. You know, this, that. It has that same tortured soul kind of, and he journeys through and he's trying to find himself and he might do some wrong thing. You know, it's like that same kind of idea. But no one fucking saw that movie. That movie did not make $1 billion. But if that movie had had the Joker in it, would have it. And then what if you know, it's, so that is really fascinating.
I have long said that I think the Joker is a more popular and more profitable character than Batman. And I think that you can actually see that tracked if you look at the grosses of the, you know,
the ones that Batman and Joker's in.
If the Joker's in it just seems to do a lot better. And I know Dark Knight Rises made slightly more than Dark Knight.
But because of the Dark Knight.
I think that it was also like 3 or 4 years after.
Way
I think it only just made more. So inflation would probably even that out. And the Dark Knight was like it's like, oh, we're in a new era of filmmaking now.
That was
that was a line.
Yeah,
maybe like Batman Begins was in retrospect, but it felt like when the Dark Knight made Batman Begins better, and then we drew the line from there. But really, the Dark Knight is what did it.
I feel like,
really what did it in the Dark Knight was the Joker.
Yeah, I can only think of maybe 2 or 3 films that, when I've been alive, have been like things. And it could be the Circus Running, but it's like Lord of the Rings, was a big thing. I remember this guy came to our house, some fucking guy. He was like ranting about how excited he was these movies were getting made. I remember seeing a trailer and I'm freaked out. Like a troll in it. I was like, oh no, too young. But like, I remember that movie explode. And like, those movies were big for years. Batman, The Dark Knight, like, I feel like that movie, like, everyone, like, I don't know, just everybody. And like, the Joker in that performance was just so... I don't know. I think that like kind of catched on in a way, and it's weird because I feel like this Joker movie caught on in that same way, where I'm like so surprised by like how much buzz and how much talk. I mean, people fucking saw it. It feels, I don't know. I guess you could be right. I was gonna ask you, are the Batman movies, the Joker, and just better movies in general? But maybe they're better because the Joker's in it.
I've never thought of that, but I would say the one point that I would raise to counter that, which might be correct, but I will say that Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad both came out very close to one another and both made equivalent amounts of money. And if you told me, you know, a year or two before that would happen, I would say you're crazy. I would say Batman versus Superman will make way more. And I think the reason Suicide Squad made
a pre-Suicide Squad Batman vs Superman world.
Yeah, like
I can't even imagine.
But think about it, like they didn't make that different amount of money, and I think Suicide Squad only made what it made because of the Joker. I really think that it was the Joker.
That's it. Yes, there's no one else in that movie. Like, why was
no one knows Deadshot? Some people know Harley Quinn, but that's a really like specific. And we've now proven that she wasn't the draw because Birds of Prey has come out. And
that is true. Actually,
and it has almost the same visual style as Suicide Squad, yet
apparently it's better as well. From everyone that I've talked to that's seen.
I can't see how it could be worse.
It couldn't be worse. There's absolutely no fucking way it could be worse. No. Unless you just put in more Eminem songs and scenes that are boring. Oh my god. Yeah, I don't...
But yeah, I mean, that movie made, I think, $700 million. Batman v Superman only made a little bit more. And yeah, I mean... I think the next Batman movie will show where things are at, because I'm calling it now. Robert Pattinson's Batman. I just can't see it making $1 billion.
$1 billion? No. Absolutely not. That would be no. There's no way to make $1 billion. What just occurred to me that I want to discuss briefly when you mentioned Robert Pattinson, fucking last week, just after we talked about how much we're not that keen for Matt Reeves' Batman, they go and release, as soon as I leave, bloody Batman first images. We put him in the costume and we filmed it. For some reason, you all get to see now. They did that for the Joker.
Yeah.
Which it's like, so that's a thing now, I guess. I don't know. I just thought it'd be fun. It's just weird that they're doing that, because I remember when they did that for the Joker, I was like, they want to visually show us the Joker, because last time there was an image on some poster of the Joker and he had the makeup on, he had the tats, and everyone went, no.
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking not, because
everyone did that with Heath Ledger, by the way. I don't know if you remember those.
No, I was not into that. I was not. Yeah, I didn't even know what the internet was back then.
The original images they released of Heath Ledger's Joker, it was on, if my memory serves me correctly.
Oh my god, is it that weird mirror thing where you see behind and it's all blurred?
No, not that. Because that's when it started looking good.
Okay.
When it was like through the glass,
I think,
glass
or thing, and it's like, why so serious?
But the first images they released were like completely white background, perfectly even lit, like studio photo. Light, and it's him doing a, wacky. I'm a wacky Joker.
Yeah,
and everyone went, what the fuck is this? Like, this doesn't, like, his makeup's all fucked and he's like, it's too bright. That you don't reveal that character in a bright white studio setting.
You reveal him how you reveal in the movie, which is
how you reveal Joaquin Phoenix. Dark flickering images with projection over the top.
Such great. Like, I remember seeing that and being like, that's all. I almost don't want to see this. Looks too real. Like, I want to have fun watching a Joker movie. This doesn't look fun.
Do you know who else they did it with? The Witcher and Henry Cavill. Oh, yeah. Remember they released an image of him and everyone was like, what?
No, probably because they put him in the wig and went, well, this doesn't work at all, but we have to do it.
We have to slowly, like, let people, like, put their toe in.
Yeah.
And, like...
And we have to slowly adjust people to the visuals so that when they watch the movie, they're okay with it. They did that with Han Solo. They gave me the image of him. They gave me the hair. They gave me his voice. They gave me bad jokes from the movie. Then when I watched the movie, I was totally fine with him. And he was way better than I thought, because I got used to him. They did that with Rise of Skywalker. They got me used to Palpatine. So by the time the movie came out, I wasn't like, what, Palpatine's in there? I was like, well, I know. I've known for a year. I've known for longer than and the way you can do that, it can be quite clever. I think that's what they've done with The Witcher, because that hair is terrible.
Yeah.
He's the sexiest man in the world, and he doesn't work with the wig, but
I feel like they fixed it from that initial photo a little.
Maybe, I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah.
I definitely remember being like, hey, mate that I have, you crave this shit. Look at this, Henry Cavill from Fallout, Mission Impossible Fallout. He's going to be this. And my friend was like, no. And he showed me an image, I remember, like, oh, cringe, I'm not keen anymore. So maybe that was the image you're talking about. But I totally think it looks sick now that I'm getting used to it. But it is like, I don't know, sometimes you do need to get people kind of a bit used to like a visual thing. Because you can just react, as people do, because they care too much about these things.
Yeah.
Because you have these preconceived notions, and especially when you read something, same with the Harry Potter things, like, once you read something, that's in your own brain. So even with the comic, you are reading the way it's presented, the way it's done.
They also, I did hear mention that apparently this is a strategy that they do now so that they can control the first look. Because there's so many set photos that get leaked now. So, and they're shooting a lot of this movie on location.
And people are going to walk past and be like, hey, Joker, Batman, look how shit that costume looks with it.
You'll get a terrible iPhone image of Robert Pattinson's Batman, or we can give you the dark, gritty first look.
And we've got some soundtrack there. It was like, boom, that soundtrack. I was like, so mood?
I didn't even know I wanted it.
Yeah, no,
I
wish I kind of listened to it again so I could kind of imagine it. But I just remember being like, it was kind of like, boom, 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 boom. It was kind of like building in. And I left that trailer more excited about, like, I don't know, I was just like,
It's Michael Giacchino, who's been doing a lot of big soundtracks.
Oh, really? Yeah,
I think he did Rogue One, and he did...
I don't like that soundtrack.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a bad example. He's done more. He's done so much recently. I feel like he's been just in everything. I think he might have done the new Spider-Man
Into
movies.
the Spider-Verse?
No, the other.
I also hate those soundtracks. There's dubstep when he hits electricity.
No. That's Hans Zimmer. No. I'm talking about the new Spider-Man.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
What happened? Did he go through a divorce? What's wrong with him now?
Yeah, no, that was him and another guy, and they were. I don't know what the fuck they were doing.
Is he?
That was Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
that soundtrack.
That soundtrack is just wild.
It's just.
I kind of love when something is so ridiculous that it doesn't hit. It just doesn't work for me at all, because it's just like. They just went for something, and if people aren't going for things like that, we don't hit gold when we hit gold. You know what I mean?
So those same, I'm pretty sure, and I will double check this, but even if it isn't true, it's still funny. The two, so Hans Zimmer and whoever the other person he worked with on Amazing Spider-Man 2, they also remixed a bunch of music for the Dark Knight Rises soundtrack, and there are dubstep Dark Knight Rises remix songs on the Dark Knight Rises soundtrack, which are just atrocious. So, like, the writing was on the wall before the Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out that they were playing around with this weird shit. Because I remember listening to that soundtrack, and I love the Dark Knight Rises soundtrack. The pure movie soundtrack. Which Christopher Nolan would have heard that shit and been like, we're not putting this anywhere near my movie.
Get the hell out of here!
Get out of here, this Hans Zimmer. We'll come back for Dunkirk or whatever.
Yeah, he's done almost all his films now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love their musical.
Because Nolan pushes Hans Zimmer to do different. They're when they work together, I think they're pushing boundaries and they're creating sounds which become the norm. So they
Well, their Inception sound became like that was like what trailers sounded like for 10 years.
And the Dark Knight theme. That sweeping like broad that kind of trickled into everything. I remember the most
deeper boom, boom, boom.
The most egregious soundtrack ripoff maybe ever. I don't know if you've seen the movie Oblivion with Tom Cruise.
I actually recently watched that, but it was like I'm hungover. I'm watching on my couch. And
there is a track in that is just so Dark Knight.
Yeah, really.
I don't know how everyone wasn't talking about it. It took me out of the movie. I was like in the movie. I'm like, this isn't too bad.
Yeah, it's fun.
I'm enjoying this. And then
and
it's just missing like one beat, or they added a beat or something like
and then
that.
They took one out or something.
And I'm like, what is this? Anyway, we should probably veer back.
Yeah, because I was going to start talking about Reanimator and Psycho, and their soundtracks are the same, so we need to definitely get out of this whatever. But actually, I want to keep this connected. I'm going to segue with music. I've probably ruined it by just saying segue, but with the Joker, my favorite. I always say favorite. I say words and mean too much, but I'm just, I just say things. The Joker soundtrack is fucking sick, But there's one aspect of the movie, and we talked about this briefly, but I didn't want to fully get into it before we were off air, but I feel very strongly about this. The music in the Joker, I think, is just like perfect. Like, whoever decided, hey, we need to get this like dark, deep, moody cellos and these strings and just have this feeling. For me, who's someone who, until the last yearish, all I'd listened to all year was the soundtrack from last year's Game of Thrones season. It's my favorite fucking thing. The soundtracks, Roman Joy is my favorite person in the world. Those soundtracks, I would know so well that if they play 3 strings of it in the next season, I'd be like, hey, it's that song that's called this. It was in those 2 moments, or that one scene in the show. I would rewatch it and be like, oh, the music. I just know the music so intimately because I listen to it for hours and hours to write to imagine my stories to, just to D1. I love that stuff. What you're saying about how you were listening to that music and then you were like, hey, it's just that song from that. A lot of this soundtrack is so close to the Throne soundtrack in weird ways where the way it moves in and out, I'm like, oh, you're starting to get to this dark, stark, moody kind of, the deep, dark kind of feeling strings. And then it would move to these other things. And it was all so close. None of it was like, hey, there's that. Because there was that scene in Black Sails where they literally go dun 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 dun, and it was like you just changed 3 beats and you're just doing Rains of Castamere. Like, I see through you. I listen to this song 5 times a day. I see through you. I see through you. This wasn't like that where I was like, oh, you feel like you're just grabbing what worked, but it's just that same
tone.
I don't know enough about music if it's in the same octave or tone or...
I know the Game of Thrones music far less than you, but I see what you're saying, and I can kind of feel the similarity.
I listened to the Joker soundtrack today on the drive here. It's about a 45-minute drive. I listened to like most of the songs, and it was very apparent, because I used to drive to my brother's 2 hours away for years, and I would just crank the soundtrack back and forth. Like, it's just so into my brain that like, it was just a weird thing, but it's like the way it cleverly was able... I just think the way that music fits with the character and his just psychological. I just feel like it fit the movie, the way it looked, the way the character was acting, the way we're following one guy. The soundtrack is one thing. It feels the same. It's tight and connected, and it's always the same strings and the same instruments. I could be wrong, but it has the same feeling. And then there's one moment in the movie, potentially the most important part of the movie, and the soundtrack completely switches up. And I don't know what the song is, but the soundtrack, the music goes dun dun. Dun, 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 dun,
it's like Gary Glitter song.
It's like a rock song where it's like, I'm rocking out, and it starts when he's just killed the guy, he's got the makeup on fully, and we see him, he's walking to the elevator, it's like dun, 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 and it's like rocky and it's cool and it's like swinging, and he sits in the elevator's closing on, and you see him fully in his makeup, and he's like, I'm the guy. And then the stairs that we've beautifully seen him slowly walk up, this eternal walk up this in the movie, we slowly see him go up. And he's never going to... And you kind of feel like he's trying to get up to the top of these stairs. And then a beautiful... Pardon me?
I was just going to say, now he's dancing down them.
Well, so I love just that opposite thing where usually it would be like you're walking down in the dark, dirty part from up there, and then he runs up to the top, but it was the opposite where he's like trying to walk up there, and then he dances down to the music, kicking and flipping, loving it. And I just remember the first time I watched it, I had such a horrifically visceral reaction to that music. Because I was so like, as soon as the movie started and he was getting beaten down and broken, and the music was like, and just all this dark strings. I was just like, oh, this is an inspired choice. And then this fucking rock song, this pucky, fucking, I'm saying words, I'm not even saying words probably because it's, I can't even.
Let me say how I felt.
Yeah,
I didn't like it.
No, yeah.
I really, really like, midway through that scene when they transition into the actual soundtrack, but this time, I think the first time I might not have even processed it because I don't really have a memory of disliking it. But when I watched it this second time, I just found it so... I felt like a few times they used maybe the worst and most obvious song. And I'm like, this is a Todd Phillips film. I
don't think worse, because you could pick music that doesn't work at all. But for the tone they're trying to do, it's the obvious, safe, easy kind of choice. It's the mood setter that feels very like they haven't really thought about it. Someone just went, use this cool song. You know?
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. Use this cool
song, and people are going to be like, hey, he's happy. It's a happy song. We're at the yay part of the movie. You know what I mean?
The movie's better than that. It seems to be. But is it?
I thought the first time, I thought the movie was better than it and it annoyed me. I actually think the choice of the rock song is inspired. Well, let me explain why. I got too over the thing before.
Change my mind.
I will try it because I really do think it's really clever, but I could be overreading it and trying to fit it into myself. But he's walking down the steps, and for him, the character, the Joker, he's just fucking properly murdered someone. Not someone who was trying to hurt him. He wasn't in self-defense. This is proper, just flat-out murder because he's sad. And, this is a bit different. And he's rewarded by a song, rock song's playing, and he's feeling all cool and and he is at that point in the movie where it's all good and the rock and the music's playing. And so the way the music's, I do agree with you. The music is it's a bad choice because it feels too easy. You're giving us the rock song because he's at that high point in the movie, and it's a feel-good song because it's a feel-good part of the movie. But as I'm watching it, I think what really jarred with me the first time was that this isn't the high point of the movie. This is at the fucking low point. He just murdered that guy. He's fucking dancing down these stairs like a fucking lunatic. We shouldn't be sitting here going dun 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 dun, dun with this fun rock song. I want to have this moody, and then as I'm thinking this, as I'm being like, what the fuck? The music's suddenly and it's got that, and it brings it back down to this haunting, harrowing, sad music. And it brings me back down, and it's, so the Joker, the character, Arthur Fleck, he's hearing this rock song, he's like, I'm there. But then it transitions to what in reality is happening. And I think the music fits that in that it's sad, it's awful, and this man, who's just a murder guy, he's just dancing on these stairs. And then as the music transitions back to the sad, painful music, we see the figures, the cops, up in that heavenly light. We see them up there.
Looking down.
And it's foreboding. And it's like, wait, what? And then they're just looking at him like, what the fuck? This dude in clown makeup just dancing? And then they're like, Arthur, I need to speak to you. And he suddenly is like, oh shit! Because he's a fucking murderer. He's just going around murdering, comes dancing like a lunatic. And then he's off. And for me, that transition of the music perfectly encapsulated how I felt the movie wanted me to feel with the character. And yeah, I could be trying to mince it and fit it in. I could be saying too many words and not...
I don't think you are. No, I think that's actually a really, really...
I actually was pretty impressed. I was like...
I think maybe I had the dumb thought where I was not giving the movie enough credit. And I just thought, because I've seen...
It does have newspapers saying kill the rich, so you're like, is subtly... Does he know what the movie is making? But I think that those kind of choices, whoever made that, I don't know, sometimes you can look at something and be like, well, it's doing this because of this, and then you can look at it and be like, no, well, it's just...
There is a reason that he transitions the song.
Well, the song transitions, yeah. And I think for me...
He could have just used the soundtrack for the whole thing.
And I remember the first time when he's dancing and it played that, I was like, no. Fuck no. And it's the same thing that I had when it's revealed that the girl is... He's not had a relationship with the girl. It just is suddenly it presents the movie... And it does the smart thing where it just tells me by things happening, and she's like, what are you doing in my apartment? Boom. They don't have any kind of relationship. He's been hallucinating at all. I understand. And then the first time in the movie, it cuts back like it's Fight Club, being like, here's the scene where they were together. Here's a shot where he's by himself. Here's a shot where they're together. Here's by itself. And I just remember being like, you're treating me like I'm a fucking dumb cunt. I watched the movie. She said, what are you doing in my apartment? She immediately treated him differently to their relationship beforehand. I understand. And I remember the first time I watched it was the main reason I wanted to bring chocolate strawberry vanilla into the discussion, because that movie perfectly handles that thing so much better, because once that switch happens, the movie fundamentally is changed. Everything we thought is changed. His whole world, every part of it is crumbled because of this horrific realization that he doesn't have any relationship with this woman. In The Joker, it just kind of happens, but funnily enough, on my rewatch, even the way it was presented in the scene, I didn't feel like he was talking down to me. I really felt like the scene was saying, we are one step ahead of Arthur. So when she's like, what are you doing in my apartment? I am aware of what's happened. But then the Joker, he turns around, he looks at it, he does this. Because the first time they met, he thought he did this gun thing and she responded, or she did it and then he did it. That wouldn't have happened. That would be a real creepy, weird thing for him to do. So I love that when he does that, he's then realizing. And then it cuts back to all those moments for him. And it's him realizing what's happened. And I'm a step ahead of him because, of course, I'm a step ahead of him. This man doesn't know what's going on. He's hallucinating. Yeah. And I'm watching him. So I should be a step ahead of him. And I don't know if it's maybe me just accepting that's the scene and how it's presented. But it really didn't. The first time I left the movies, I was like, I love this. But that scene treated me like a dumb cunt. I kind of don't think it did this time. It really felt like, also the way that the music built, where it was just like doom, 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 and it felt quicker, it felt faster, and it really felt like something that the character needed to dawn on him, so that when we see him walking out of the apartment, it's like he knows, he's aware. And yeah, so I don't know. I think that...
Look, it's a little spoon-feedy, but it's not... Yeah, it's not a...
I think it can be spoon-feedy, but for instance, Martin Scorsese, famous acclaimed director, has in his movie about someone who wants to seek 15 minutes of fame and it will cost them the rest of their life. Literally, before the end of the movie, he's like, well, I reckon it'd be better to be a king for a night than a schmuck for a lifetime. Don't say the point of your movie! I'm not a fucking idiot, Scorsese! What the fuck? And I think that, when I watched that, I was like, but that was the first watch, and I felt it was egregious because it felt like it was coming at me. But I think if I rewatched it, I'd be like, no, but I mean, you can put one line in about what your movie is. It's when you have full scenes where you just delve into it and it's too obvious.
Well, that thought that you had there, I had that same thought when he smothers his mother.
I thought my life was a tragedy, but yeah.
That line played to me the same way the King of Comedy line played to you the first time. Like,
don't treat me like a dumb cunt?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
That line to me, when I hear that, because when I was rewatching it, he's like, my life's a fucking comedy. All I think is, hey, he says fuck in the real movie, because in the trailer, he doesn't say fuck. Because that's the trailer line. Because I was overseas when this movie, the trailer's out, so like, I was just not real. I don't know. It's like I was just watching all the trailers and like on my little iPhone in a fucking hostel. And just like those lines and those images like just really stood out to me because I remember being like, "Holy shit, this feels like a real movie." Like, but because it's such a classic line. Like, I thought my life was a tragedy, but it's a comedy. And just that, it's just that using that really basic like sad clown and that twisting of iconography. It actually reminds me quite a lot of what I really really loved about the comic books Preacher. Not to do with the TV series, not mentioning that for a second. That's the worst thing ever made. But the comic books, the graphic novels, whatever you fucking want to call them, is so great in just the simple use of he's dressed as a preacher. But the whole thing of him dressing as a preacher is because if he walks into a town dressed as a preacher, you know what people treat you like? A fucking preacher. You know what he's not? A fucking preacher. And he's like twisted and mutilated what a preacher's meant to be, and he's using it.
Yeah.
And I love that they use the kind of what a clown is meant to represent and what a clown can kind of, you know, like, I just want to make people laugh. And when he does the thing with Batman, and he's just like, I just want to make the kid laugh. Calm down. He's like, don't fucking touch that kid. Potentially not as angry as you should have been. He had his hands in his face. I didn't really pick that up the first time, but he's probably like, up in his gums. Like, I feel like if you saw a man with his gums in the kid's hand, you shoot him in the face. I think you're allowed to shoot someone in the face if they come into your property.
Especially in this destabilized Gotham.
And he's the poor... Yeah, I mean... angry Alfred. I enjoyed that.
Did we need that scene?
Well, see, what's kind of funny is that, like... Because you've slapped the Joker on, I think if you do nothing... Yes, it's so interesting because... I think I just switched on how I feel, but as I'm watching it, I love that scene because it's a man, like, you get away with the Batman stuff. Just get away with the Batman stuff.
Yeah.
It's a man who's going to who he thinks is his father's house. That's his brother. It's not, I mean, it is literally the Joker going and playing with baby Batman's face because he thinks they're fucking brothers. When you watch the movie knowing the twists and turns, when I first watched the movie, things like he's just like reading that thing, I'm like, oh no. There's a subplot now where the Joker thinks he's Batman's brother.
Yeah.
And so things like that really weigh down on everything. But when I'm watching it again, it's like...
Yeah, that didn't bother me the second time.
I really think once you process what a movie is, it's not... I had a discussion with someone recently. It's like he loves... Like, he just reads spoilers of a movie online and then he'll watch it. Oh. And I screamed at him like 5 minutes. I really yelled at him.
Maybe he's right.
No, but he was like
the
tension and the suspense that is lost when you know the ending. He didn't give a shit. He was like, I don't care about that.
So he's kind of looking at it as the movie works or it doesn't work, and it doesn't matter what I know going in.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
And I think in a lot of ways he's right, because a lot of my issues with the Joker was the first when I was just presented with information and it hit me, and I was like, because when it starts, I'm not like, maybe he's not going to be Batman's son. I'm like, ew! He's going to be Batman's son. Twist! He's like, he's going to be Batman's brother? What a shitty... Like, why? Just make your movie about the Joker. Wasn't this meant to be a Joker movie without the Batman? But I'm bringing all this shit in. Once I've seen the movie and I accept it, what it is, I'm watching it, and I'm watching this character who's going through these things. I'm struggling with him. I feel sad for him. I hate these people who are just not treating him properly because of his fucking mental illness. He didn't fucking wake up and just do this to himself. He's not like...
What does he say? The problem with having a mental illness is people treat you like you...
I think the thing is, like, the thing about having a mental illness is that people want you to act as if you don't.
That's it.
And I'm not going to get into it, but from my real life experiences, that is so fucking horrifically true. Yeah, it's that for me, that those little bits and the pain because of his such incredible performance. It's really like, I don't know, like out of all the 4 movies we watched, it affected me the most.
I think it made that when he wrote that line in that book, that made me reflect on the way I had looked at people too. And that might be the moment in the movie, and it's kind of like I feel like I've seen it before, but maybe I haven't. Like, I can't think of anywhere I've seen that line, but that line like resonated, like it was familiar, but made me like really reflect on myself and go, fuck, man, like I need to be a better person to people who are going through shit like this. Not that I'm a terrible person, but I mean, well, no, if you're treating people like that, you kind of, but you are.
The way he's the stuff, like, I don't know, because like, you know,
it's very confronting.
In Taxi Driver, there's like a lot of things the character goes through, but at the end of the day, a lot of his stuff is like, oh, the slime, they go on the city to, when he's talking to the fucking guy who wants to be president, flush it all down the toilet, fuck society, fuck everyone, and I'm like, yeah, like, he's not wrong, but the way he wants to go about it is like, for most of the movie, he wants to kill his ex-girlfriend's boss. He doesn't care about the politics. It's like
Whoa.
Okay, alright.
Maybe we have a different reading here.
Yeah, okay, alright.
So I think that he only came to the conclusion of killing the Palatine, Palpatine, running for senator. I couldn't unsee Palpatine.
I was about to say, imagine that movie come out a couple of years earlier before Star Wars, they just called Palpatine. How funny it would be.
And Ian McDermott is playing the guy.
That'd be so good.
But I felt like, because he does go out of his way, much like Arthur Fleck, of saying he's not political. He doesn't have any idea about politics. But do you think it is? I think it's all to do with the rejection of him being rejected by the girl, Betsy.
Yeah.
And when he's rejected by Betsy, he goes from wanting to volunteer and pour all his time into it, into wanting to literally kill the ideal that she's standing for.
Yeah.
It's not about killing him. It's maybe more about hurting her.
Yeah, so that's what I meant by killing the boss of it.
Maybe I misunderstood.
I guess what I meant is just that he's like a political figure and he's an assassin. I remember being like, it's a movie about him wanting to like kill the politician for some reason. But it was no. It's like when I watched it again, I was like, no, he's pissed at the girl. And then he just, ooh. But then it's such a weird thing because he fails just sort of completely miserably. I remember hating that years ago when I watched it. I was just like, I was so excited for this. It was like building up and the guy's like, there's a guy over there. And he just runs away. I'm like, you cut your hair and everything. Like, what a shitty ending. And then he just goes to the slimy, wiping his face in all the weird spots. Harvey Keitel just murders everyone. When I rewatched that, I was like, that's the most horrifically, like... But, I don't know, he, like, directs it like slot... I don't know, what am I...
He points his aggression from, I guess, wanting to... And it's almost by coincidence, which is why I don't really understand maybe what the movie is trying to say. I feel like I need
Taxi Driver?
Yeah, like I felt like the first time I watched it, I had a very clear idea. And now I watch it again and I'm like, I'm a bit confused by what the movie's trying to say. Because he goes from trying to kill the political guy that he's actually formed what seems to be a genuine small connection with. The guy heard him out. Listened to him, did what most politicians never do.
I love that scene so much. He's like talking, and the other politicians kind of like, what are you doing?
Yeah, he's like, what are we doing in a cab? Get in the limo.
And he's like, I love sitting in this taxi because the thing is, I was like, this dude.
This guy's like a real guy.
Fuck yeah, vote for this guy. This is the kind of guy you want, who seems hands-on.
But it doesn't even seem like the character realizes that his aggression should be pointed over. I guess because he's kind of gone insane. That it's just aggression needs to be let out. And just by coincidence, really. His aggression was pointed in the right area and it helped someone.
Yeah, the weird twist of fate that, like, he happened to, like... Also, there's the weirdest thing when, like, he keeps bumping into, like, 12-year-old Jodie Foster throughout the movie. It was so much like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Brad Pitt's driving around, and there's 1, 2, and then the third car meeting. And there's 3 car meetings where he's driving the car and he sees her. It's the same. It's the same thing. It was so weird. You know, just, I don't know, you can do that in a story where it's like, this girl, you just keep seeing her, it's like 12-year-old, and she comes in the taxi, and then the money, like, that's left there becomes very, he's like, you know, do I dive into this seedier world? Because he's still like, he's wiping cum, and he's like, sometimes I wipe the blood off the seats, and it's like, ooh. But he's not implying that it's murder. He's there, and he's got that guy who's like, I'm gonna go kill my wife, and he's, you know, that stuff. Fucking love Taxi Driver so much more the second time. I hated it as a kid, and like
you watched it as a kid.
Oh, like between 14 to 18, I watched like all the, you know, like all the.
I just pictured an 8-year-old.
Oh no! I was watching The Lion King and Aladdin on repeat until Lord of the Rings came out, and I was like, movies? And then I watched that on repeat. And Indiana Jones. That was it. But I shouldn't have said all those things. What were we talking about? Sorry. Oh god.
No, we both just completely lost.
No. So the Jodie Foster character. Shouldn't have said Indiana Jones. My mind just went, whoo! The Jodie Foster character, the way she builds into the movie, it feels kind of random, but I think it's because he does hate this, like, city. It's like, the underbelly of the city. Because he's a taxi driver. He doesn't care where he's working. So that puts you into that world. So you're just seeing more of the grossness.
Yeah.
So it's not, I don't know. But he does kind of almost accidentally, like, unleash that violence on the people who deserve it. Because Harvey Keitel fucking sucks. He's not even just a pimp. I can't remember how it develops. I'm pretty sure he kisses and implied fucks like Jodie Foster's character. It was like 12 or something. Also super weird to see her as a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, just, so when she first appeared, I'm like, oh my god, I forgot that she's a child. Even just seeing Robert De Niro younger, I'm like, oh my god. A time when he wasn't kind of just doing this, he's like actually acting. Like in King of Comedy, I was like, he can act.
Yeah.
Really well. But like, the whole thing with Jodie Foster's character is like, once he gets into that world, it just feels like the movie's suddenly like, hey, now we're about this. And then he botches the president thing quite quickly, and so it just directs into this thing. So, I don't know, it feels kind of like, I don't know, I don't think it feels like muddled the way the Joker feels, but it kind of feels like it's using these ideas, and then at the end, he does this thing, and he's rewarded for it, and I don't know, I just think it's a weird kind of like conclusion to the movie, like suddenly just having this horrific, brutal like fight. Have you heard the theories about how, like, because we're gonna get to the Joker's ending, it's like, is it a dream? Is the thing real or not? Which I fucking hate all that shit.
Yeah. And
I think Taxi Driver, and I don't want to be over hyperbolic, because honestly, the way you read a movie and the way it hits you is the way it hits you.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think Taxi Driver, if you imagine that he gets killed when he does the gun shootout and dies, and all the good things that happen
are the last moments of life or
completely,
whatever.
Like, it is literally light and day, night and dark, 0 to 100. Like, it's the polar opposite to what I really do think that movie is saying, which is that he's rewarded. He saves the girl. His old girlfriend even fucking gets in his taxi and is kind of like, eh?
And he rejects her.
And and it's like, and he is properly rewarded because that's what the movie's saying, you know? And if he's just dreams and a hallucination, the last 20 minutes is just a weird, bloody bar shootout with random characters that were kind of half introduced halfway through the movie. You know, it just, I don't know, I feel like it needs to not be that dream to really have that kick.
Yeah.
Like, if you were to say King of Comedy ends with him getting taken away and arrested, and he dreamed up that when he got released, he got a book deal and he got the show, that's a shit movie then. It's a shit movie about a shit cunt who got nothing because he doesn't deserve anything. The idea of him being rewarded for doing that is so brutal and horrific and
fits
and interesting and beautiful, and it fits
the rest of the movie.
It's like the movie's here and then it clicks at
I mean,
the end.
I guess it kind of fits with him imagining it, but it just feels so
that feels cheap,
nothing.
man. It feels like that
they're not saying anything if
like
he's just imagining it all, because that's just what the rest of the movie is.
People haven't, and the hallucinations throughout a movie. So another reason we want to talk about all these movies is they all have the hallucinatory.
They disassociate.
Yeah, the idea that we are seeing scenes that at some point will be revealed or are immediately revealed to be dreams.
Yeah.
Fantasies. I think I love the first Joker one. It's the same as the King of Comedy one, where we're watching the show, suddenly he's on the show, and he's talking to Murray, and then it's like, this is very obviously not real.
Yes.
The way he's talking. Also, that's the only part of the Joker where I cringe, where he's like, I take good care of my mother. And he's like, and all the audience is like, and I'm like, that's not how they would respond to that scene.
But it's in his head.
So, no, it's in his, no, I know, but it makes me cringe for what he wants. What he wants people to be cheering him for makes me just kind of like, and then it's so much more tragic when it finds out his mother is awful and has ruined his whole life, and it's the only person who's given anything to him. Before we get into the dream hallucin thing, because I'm gonna forget. When he puts on his filmmaker costume at the end and sits down at the talk show thing, he gets super campy. And it comes out of nowhere. He gets super campy.
The head jiggles and the...
Even just, there's one bit where because the guys who kills it was singing, but I don't know, no one knows that, so they wouldn't get this joke. But they're like, why'd you kill those people? He's like, because they were awful, Murray, and they just couldn't hold a tune to save their lives. It's really campy. I kind of remember it the first time, but when I watched it yesterday, I was like, it's so campy all of a sudden. It's just an interesting choice because it feels so different. Even once he shoots him and he walks off stage, he doesn't feel campy anymore. And before that, there's nothing to indicate that once he... So I think it's almost like he becomes so comfortable with himself, he's able to put on this persona.
Yes.
Or maybe what he wants to be. Maybe what he... I don't know. It's just... I thought that was a sort of interesting little thing that I feel like I've heard no one talk about with my friends or online. He gets super campy, but no, it's just...
I guess it is him fully embracing the
Joker
persona.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm just going to be a bit woo, and just really funny. But with the hallucinatory thing, would you say that you're generally do you like how the Joker does it?
No.
Because it's the worst part of the film by far. It's the only part of the film where I'm like, it's actually not good.
It's too quick.
It's so quick.
Yeah.
Blink and you miss. Literally blink and you miss.
I would have, just because it's been done so much... Mm-hmm. Maybe even faked it out and then double faked it out.
So have him be...
You put the audience onto the suspicion that it's fake, but then do something to go, no, it's definitely not. And then at the end go, no, it actually was. Ooh. So just because it's a...
play with it.
Yeah, it's
Put it in the movie.
It's a played out trope. So if you're going to do it again, you need to sure, the reason is that you're building this character to what he's going to become, but that's not enough reason for you to just do the same trope and do it worse than movies were doing 30, 40 years ago.
If I think of the ones that have those kind of twist, that person's the real winner. It's the big one for me is Fight Club and American Psycho. American Psycho though is very similar, I think, in terms of we're following this guy and then shit gets fucking wild in the last 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. And then it's rugs pulled out of you, but the theme fits either or. If you think that he didn't murder those people and he's so insane, I think that fits the same way that he's killed them all, but then the woman's just I just got rid of the bodies because I don't want to deal with it because I've got to sell this house. And the other people are no, I saw him last week because everyone's the same. All the yippies or whatever they call yippies. Yeah. I don't know. There's a phrase that yuppies. Yeah. They're all those yuppies. I shouldn't say words. I don't understand. But they're also interchangeable, and it's I think the way I feel if I think about both, even though they are very different, I think it works really strongly. And I think in Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, if you think that the dream aspect of it is plays into the absurdity of the ending, I think it really takes away a lot. And I think the worst thing about things being one or the other is that if one of them I feel just isn't the same strength and power of what the movie's trying to say. And with the Joker, it's not as egregious now I've watched it, but I think that's just because I think the film is quite good. The other aspects, but she's not in the movie at all. She barely speaks, and I guess that's because they didn't want to make it so obvious that she's not speaking to other characters, so they get no full scenes together. All the scenes with her in it are very there's one bit where she's just there, then she's I'm gonna get a coffee, then she leaves. It's just... And then when he finds out that their relationship isn't the same, I remember talking to a friend, he's was it implied that he killed her when he left the room? I'm well, what implication? He left the room? Yeah, we didn't see what happened, but what implication that he murdered her? That feels a bit extreme.
Yeah.
And because we don't see anything, it doesn't, it's another stepping stone. Often a film that has like a lot of themes going on. I think they can be stepping stones to get to where the character needs to get.
Yeah.
Like the whole crumbling of Gotham, it's not fully fleshed out, but it shouldn't be, because the point, or at least for me, the point is that the Joker is running away from, not the point, but it's used so when the Joker wants to get into the Thomas Wayne, there's this riot going on, and he's all like, oh my god, look at this riot, oh my god, look at that, and the icon of the mask and the face, and then when he's running away from the cops, he slinkers away and is able to hide unintentionally because everyone's dressed like a fucking clown because of him, but not because of him, because they've all gone clowns, fuck the rich, and they've all embraced this other thing. Like that guy who's like, it's because of the rich, it's because of the inequality, and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, Arthur Fleck doesn't care about that. Arthur Fleck is lonely. He just wants like a really big hug from someone who truly means it. Like, really? And he thinks that like maybe people will laugh, will get that, because when you make someone laugh, it makes you feel good because you sense their happiness going up, and it.
But he's an outcast, and it's yeah. My favorite,
most uncomfortable moment of the movie that we haven't talked about is not just his laughter, but the double-edged blade of his laughter, where it's like, one is that he's got a mental illness, so sometimes he'll uncontrollably laugh when he's not finding it funny, and the other weird side of this blade is that he doesn't get humor, and so he doesn't know when to laugh, and so he fakes his laugh sometimes. So you've got that scene where that guy's like, something joke, I don't know, I'm the guy from, what was that movie that was the guy from? I don't know. And it doesn't matter. It was that guy who's from that thing. And he says that thing, he's one of the clown troop, like getting the clown troop, or whatever the fuck, their clown thing they've got going on. And the Arthur Fleck's like leaving the room and he's like, ha 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 ha. As soon, and so
he turns the corner and
he's like, ha ha ha. And it's just that, which I just, God, that performance is so irresistible. Isn't it scary? The way he like does that, I found so like painful to watch, because it's like sometimes someone's like, "What is that funny?" He's like, and he's
looking for his card at one point,
and he's trying to choke, and it's like, and then the other time when he thinks people want him to laugh, he's like. And the best use of it, and just it's so like jarring. It's like it's so obvious he's getting it wrong, but he doesn't even realize that. Is when we're slowly moving in the crowd with the people in the stand-up show, and he's like joke, and then he's like, and then he just says a word. He's like, ha, and then realizes no one else is laughing. He's like, and then someone's laughing, like the crowd, and then he's like, oh, and then he's like, sexy jokes land or whatever. It's like real basic, like an alien or a robot is like, must fit in with people. Make sex joke, they laugh. You know what I mean? It's just really funny. I was just trying to get back my thoughts. And it's because I actually really like this. We didn't like structure it to a joke and then we'll do this. But it's like sometimes you're like weaving in and out of the thoughts and feelings of why we picked these four. We bring it back down to like not the core, but it's like, the Scorsese ones, and then there isn't Chocolate Strawberry Miller. It's like it's got the same as like it's a sad man. He's lonely. He's isolated, and I think something we haven't properly discussed yet, which I found super fascinating. I think it's more Chocolate Strawberry and King of Comedy, but they've all got it. Is like fan obsession. So personally, when I watched King of Comedy, I was like, that 25 minutes in, I paused it and I went and got myself some food. And I made some pies. It doesn't matter what I ate. But like, I went and it wasn't just like, when you get food and it's like a 2-second thing. It was like a process. I was like, I'm now going to put on, I made pies. I'm into pies at the moment. And I put on 2 pies in the oven. I was like, that's a 45-minute thing. I got to set an alarm. I'm going to have to stop. And I did this because I was like, I had to just give myself a few seconds because he was so obsessed. It was freaking me out. And it was making me genuinely uncomfortable where I was cringing the way that like I do when I watch that dude who made The Office. So I'm just like, when you're just cringing, you're like actually cringing, like proper cringe, where I'm like, I actually can't look at you. I'm so like uncomfortable because it's so real, it's so brutal, but this character's not giving me enough to make me feel like I'm like, oh yeah, but maybe
there's no empathy.
There's no, it's a weird one where I feel like they don't give me anything, which I think is really cool to like not give me anything to grab onto as a character and make me be like, what the fuck? This guy won? This movie is him winning and kidnapping a guy and like doing it, and he's so like, oh, I kidnapped him, well, this is the only way to get on TV because I know people need to see my shitty jokes. I'm so self-entitled and like, ugh. But his fan obsession, like, it just dived into this thing that I find kind of fascinating. And the next thing I'm going to say is not to be like, these people are crazy like him. Not at all, but just on a level of how far he goes. I feel like he's taking it to 12, where it's like, when I think about like being obsessed, it's like, I feel like I can get proper obsessed. Like, I was obsessed with Game of Thrones. It was all I could think about sometimes. Those 10 weeks each year was just, I'm obsessed and thinking, overthinking. And with just pop culture and movies and stuff, like the Star Wars and the Marvels, I get obsessed with them. But I would never step outside of my house in a costume or not in a costume and go to one of those conventions and see a star. I did it once with my mate when I was 15 and I hated it. It was a shitty Australian one. I'm sure that the big ones in America are better. This is in Melbourne. I'm sure.
I don't think they are.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter. But even if it is or it isn't, the vibe of seeing that many people who were big nerds and loved all the stuff I love fucking freaked me out. I was like, whoa, everyone cares way too much. And I just don't give a fuck. If Simon Pegg and Nick Frost were there, at that point, like Space to just like, it was influenced by web series I was making. It was exactly what I wanted to make, like using pop culture but being its own thing. And I was obsessed with those guys, and they were there, and I didn't give a fuck.
See, I had a very different experience at a very similar thing. I went to one of these conventions, and there were a lot of famous people there. TV famous for the most part.
Australian TV famous? Or?
No.
Okay, because that's not famous.
No, it's definitely not famous. Unless it's Neighbours. And then it's only famous once they make
Once they leave Neighbours.
Oh, yeah. Or Home and Away.
Was Thor on Neighbours? I think it was on Home and Away.
Did you take that stepping stone to get to Hollywood?
You had to have, right?
But I was at a convention, and I was standing with a friend of mine and just looking around, chatting, and looking at all the stuff. And out of the crowd, I just see someone super familiar. I'm like, oh, that's Michael Rooker. Walking Dead and Guardians of the Galaxy fame.
Yeah, Mary Poppins.
Now, this was just before Guardians of the Galaxy.
So
he wasn't...
So he's that guy in those weird James Gunn movies that no one saw.
Yeah. And I'd seen him in...
Yes,
when
he's the gross... Like, I love that stuff, but I can imagine people going like, ooh, no, not for me.
The main thing I knew him from was The Walking Dead. He was the hand cut off. And,
yeah.
And I completely just became speechless when I saw him. And he saw me notice him, and no one else in the crowd had noticed him yet. And he came up and he patted me on the shoulder and he said, "Hey, how are you, buddy?"
Oh my god.
I was like, "Oh, good."
Oh my god, yeah.
And I was like, that was the moment I realized I don't ever want to come into contact with someone I actually care. Not that I don't care about Michael Rooker. He seemed like a lovely guy, but I wasn't super passionate about anything.
Yeah, if you had freak out if that was Samuel Jackson or Mark Hamill maybe or something.
Someone who I really resonated with. Probably more. I think I would be more freaked out by a filmmaker than even an actor. Because
a filmmaker for me for sure. I just want to.
I wouldn't want to
be so chill
say.
and cool that
And my partner recently asked me if you ran into X famous person. I can't even remember who they were talking about. And I just said, "What?" She said, "What would you say?" And I said, "I wouldn't go up to them."
Yeah.
I think I'm at the point now.
Yeah, you just wouldn't want to do it.
No, I don't really want to. You need to separate the person from
it's just a dude.
Yeah, from the art that they create, and this is what these people just when you disassociate, when you don't have a grasp of reality, when you live in your own head, and when you build your own confidence and ability up, you build a sense of entitlement, and it can twist your mind. It happens a lot to people who are working really hard at doing something and not gaining the traction they thought they would. Because any creative endeavor is extremely difficult, and 99% of people are probably going to fail at it. Yeah. And that's the reality of not just creative enterprise, anything, yeah? Most things are really hard, and most of the spoils and rewards go to the very, very few who have worked really hard, and some who haven't, and sometimes it's not always fair, and sometimes people get lucky breaks. But Jerry Lewis says it to Robert De Niro, you got to start at the bottom.
It took me fucking years to define, to refine.
Yeah, to do this little thing and make it look natural is really hard. Yeah. And
it looks like I'm not trying, but I tried for 50 fucking years.
That was maybe my favorite scene. And that was pretty close to the start from memory. Yeah.
Jerry Lewis's outlook made me so angry at Robert De Niro's character, because I felt like this guy is just being so hey, come on, man,
yeah.
And he's not fuck you, fan. But like,
at no
he's
point,
also just
even later when he sees the woman on the phone.
Yeah, and he's just like, sorry, this and that, and he's just like, cancer, I hope you fucking get cancer. It's like, that's the obsession. That's like expecting too much from this fucking person who's just a fucking person. They just want to walk down the street. That movie made me be like, I would hate to be famous. I've always known I'd hate to be famous. Like the idea of anybody knowing, like the idea of being like, fucking working my job and someone comes up to me and like knew me from like a movie. Like, oh my god, not being able to walk down the street, not being able to shopping. Like, I love those scenes where Jerry Lewis is just walking down the street and they're in the car being all fucking gross about to kidnap him and stuff, but they do have a really interesting discussion, and the other woman has a really insightful thought, which is kind of insane because she's delusional as fuck, but she has this really insightful look of being like, hey, he just wants to like feel like normal and safe and part of just the world. Because the idea of not wanting to walk down the street because people might just see you and be like, you suck it. It's like, oh, that. And then Robert De Niro's character, like, not understanding that these people, and it's like, not to say at all, like I was comparing the cosplay thing with, well, not just cosplaying, but that whole Comic-Con thing, and just, it's like, I find that intense. So this was just like too much, because like that fan, like, I don't know, just like idolizing this one person and having this thing, it's like, but it's just a dude, like when he goes to his house, like that horrified me. Like the idea that like you go to this dude's house, and he's just playing golf and he comes home and his look, Jerry Lewis, I have not seen in things. I'm sure maybe I've seen one or two things, but his performance was so fucking brilliant. I was just so on his side because it was so like subtle and nuanced and just very like, he wasn't like loud and coming in, but he was just like, you could see as Robert De Niro was talking, you could see it boiling in his brain, and he's like, and I could just see like this guy, he's worked really, really hard. He probably really wanted to be famous, but like, you know what? When you're fucking the most successful guy in the world, the worst fucking guy in the world is going to come to your fucking house and ruin your weekend. And you don't deserve that. You've worked really hard. You have fucking, oh my god, my favorite, the MVP of the movie is the fucking Asian housemaid, the butler, sorry, yeah. What was I going to say? Housemaid. Oh, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
He's just like, he's putting his fingers on everything. He's ruining the house. Like, oh my god. And then when the guy leaves and he's like, opens the door, he's like, you did really good, Jerry. You fucking did great. That guy, I was like, I love this man so much. And I don't know, just, there's something about his performance where I was like, that's why you should have award shows. So that guy gets rewarded for being fucking sick and just making the movie better when he didn't need to be doing anything and it's nothing wrong. Don't want to get into awards or anything, but I was just like, I just want that guy to know that that's like the stand-up scenes in the movie for me. It's like, he was so great, and it was such a funny little, I just love when movies just like give you that little like character that he's just relevant.
Feels so real.
He feels so real.
Yeah.
And I feel like I know so much about Jerry Lewis's character because that guy's fucking sick. Like, and he's only fucking sick because he loves his job, so he must love his boss. His boss must be sick, and like, and that makes sense because this guy he's not that like evil, like, I'm the Hollywood star and I'm squashing all these genius creators that don't squash. It's like, this guy's done nothing to try. He's just trying to swindle his way in, then he uses fucking like crime to do it. It's not fair, it's not cool. He almost gets Jerry Lewis fucking raped. It's horrific. That scene also is like really like scary. The way she's just talking and he's just silent there. I was taking a weird turn. I didn't expect the film to go into that weird spot, like out of nowhere. Not out of nowhere, but it's like the way it splits off and he's just on the show and then Jerry Lewis is just there in this like,
and there's like a million candles lit, which I don't know why just freaked me out a bit more, that she went around and lit all, like the psychosis in her is just bubbled to this point where this is alright, and she's got this man taped to a chair. It's,
Also, this is, we're just tangenting off.
Office Uncomfortable is probably the best, when you said before that this makes me uncomfortable, like Ricky Gervais' Office makes me uncomfortable. I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah, because I find, like, I don't think Ricky Gervais is like a bad performance or anything like that, but those, show, The Office.
Because he's so good.
I mean, it must be, but I literally cannot watch that show. I've not watched more than probably half an episode. I found it so unfunny. Not just because it was unfunny, just because it was so cringy and like
it's relatable in a horrific way.
That
you just don't want to confront, and you don't really want to see.
You
don't really want to watch hours and hours of this. I can only watch like half an episode at a time of the show.
So, for instance, as you were saying, with the sense of entitlement, and like once you gravitate towards something and you become overly invested, it becomes dangerous. And this is a very loose kind of version of this and a part less dangerous. But I was proper obsessed with Thrones. I read the books and then I was building up for like the 5th season. And I got so obsessed, I would defend it and it would become slightly irrational where I would see something and I would be like, I don't like that. But then someone would be like, that sucks. I'm like, no, this and that, oh, you just see. And I would create excuses. I'd create things because it was my obsession. I was in love with it. It was not all I had. I'm being dramatic, but it was honestly the most important thing to me. I mean, I have friends. I love my brother. It's not, but in terms of like what I think about the most, what would obsess my time, what I would love thinking about the most, what I love rewatching, what just in that world, and I wasn't able to clearly think about it, and I wasn't able to objectively look at it. And obviously this is completely different, but if that Game of Thrones was a person, dangerous, scary.
What if you met D&D right after season 8 ended? What if they walked into the room? Do you think you'd De Niro? Like, do you think you would just be... Obviously...
I would truly love to sit down with them, and honestly, all I'd like to ask them is, when did they stop liking it? What part of the books that George told them about in the future they didn't like, and why they decided to do the things they did? And then I'd ask them, I was going to say something. Yeah, and then I'd beat the shit out of them. And I would fucking kill them. And I'd bring their fucking partners over and I'd be like, you kept telling him to come back? You're sick of him working on this? Fuck you. You're the reason he doesn't care about this show anymore. Fuck them all. I hate them so much because I've defended every terrible mistake they made. And they've made so many mistakes.
But this is exactly what we're talking about.
No, this is what I'm talking about. Well, my passion is so overridden. I would never want to meet them. I've never made a comment online, but all the comments I see once season 8 came out, I was like, good. I'm so glad the whole world turned on them. Because the world, like me, was like, without even realizing, making excuses for them. Constantly being like, no. And I've still heard people like, no, but they've still made good, you're forgetting about all the good choices. No, I'm not. They did make great choices. But then they got to a point where they didn't care anymore. And my passion, though, you can't fight me on this. You could never convince me season 8 is not the worst piece of media ever made. But I was too passionate beforehand. So I fell off a cliff, and it's like, that, you take that and you put that into a person, and how I feel about Game of Thrones, that is what Robert De Niro is doing to Jerry Lewis. It's terrifying, and it's not good, it's toxic. My feelings for Thrones are toxic, I'm very aware of that. But it's just a show, I can feel however the fuck I want. People feeling about that, that's how I felt when I was a kid about Lord of the Rings. It's the greatest thing in the world. And when something is bad, I was like, fuck you. I don't want to get to this. I have this fucking shirt, and my favorite shirt was my other shirt is Mithril, my favorite fucking shirt in the world. And I took it to a friend, to a party or something, and no one understood it. I was like, these aren't my people. If you don't understand what this joke is, you're not my people. So I was so obsessed, and I just crave things. But the way he twists that, and I think just with another person, it's because I can think how I think about Thrones, and I'm not going to his house and egging him. I'm not writing a single thing online about it. It's this is just how I personally feel, and I'm just so passionate that it's I'm going to be passionate about something. But when you really, it goes away from that fan thing over a thing. This is why people get so angry about the Harry Potter movies, those things they're doing recently with fucking Albus Dumbledore and shit. It's because you just care so much, but it is also a fiction. So everyone's kind of different, and it's not that fucked because it's not a person. It's when you start directing to the people, when the Star Wars fans of Last Jedi directed it at the actresses and stuff. It's they didn't even write the script. They're not gonna say what they say. And it's the same with
they had no fucking choice.
Yeah, no.
They just thought they got the biggest break of their life. And they're I'm gonna go and say all the words and show up on time and do my thing and get out of there and hope it all goes well. And it was probably their worst nightmare for that to happen. The
same thing with still with Star Wars. Oh god. With the J.J. Abrams guy, Jar Jar Binks guy, and he's now does talks about. I think it's him. He just talks now about bullying and depression. He's because he's had to go through such a horrendous thing that fucking it's just that thing where you get obsessed and then you start directing that obsession to people. That's when it becomes really scary. That's what I found King of Comedy really, really confronting.
Do you think the end of King of Comedy, in that our takeaway is that it's not, the character didn't get what he deserved, but actually, according to Jerry Lewis's character, no, he did get exactly what he deserved. He is now Jerry Lewis in a certain...
And so you think that he deserves that? Or is...
No, he doesn't deserve the fame, but he does deserve all of the shit that comes with it that he's now going to have to deal with. Is that maybe...
The Robert De Niro's will then fuck with him? There's a scene where they say that. Yeah.
And now, like, rethinking it at the end... And the last shot is just kind of coming in on him, and it's like all these people showed up for him and he's happy, but I mean, is it a happy ending? Is he going to become that? Is he going to become the... I mean, he literally becomes it in Joker. It's a different movie, but I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't read it as a happy ending for that character. Maybe everything is just going to come undone for him as it does for anyone who achieves such a high level of fame. I mean, he's selling out bookstores. He's all over the TV. He's got national media attention.
Still a fucking weirdo.
And he's shit at comedy. So, I mean, that's going to wear out.
Yeah, that's going to wear out fucking fast, man. Those jokes were so bad. That was so bad, I was like...
Because he didn't earn it. He didn't earn his place there. Maybe he even needs one more scene where they just drill that in. But I don't know.
Where he sucks? I actually love that we don't see him do stand-up once until the end. Because it's like...
Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Maybe... Yeah.
Until the end.
I remember thinking, like,
is he genius?
They don't show the set, and then it veers off. And this was the first time I'd seen King of Comedy, the other day. And then it was yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I can't even remember what the thought was I was having. He records the set. He goes back to the police and they don't show it and they cut. And I'm like, all right, they have to show it. We have to see what happened. And maybe he's going to kill it. And why would they be trying to? And I'm going through all these thoughts in my head and they didn't go there anyway. But I thought it was interesting. What if this guy was so entitled and then backed it up? Would that change our perspective? Of the character?
If he killed. But then again, if he killed, maybe I'm like, hey, that was great comedy. That's what I love about stand-up. And then, you could be like, oh my God, Justin Timberlake fucking sucks. Would you like Rob Schneider? I don't. For the fucking record. Oh my God, I was yelling at someone last night about Rob Schneider, like, real hard. I don't know, I got into a wave of heat. I'm like, I don't even care. What am I yelling about him for? But the comedy is so subjective, though. Like, all media is entirely subjective. It really, really is. But comedy, so much more. Because I think, like... I mean, a drama can work or not work, but a comedy is like... Ha ha! Or you just be like... Nah.
Yeah.
Comedy, when it doesn't work, also can, like, hit you. Like, if a drama for me isn't working, I'd be like... It's still images, still people talking. Dialogue's not here. In comedy, when someone says a joke, and there's, like, a pause, but I'm meant to react and be happy and be like, ha 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 ha. And if you're not, it's kind of like, oh. And then you can even delve into that cringe. You're like, oh no, this is bad. So it's like, I think it's safer to just make it trash and it's not, I don't know, because then if you're trying to make it funny, then you've got people arguing over whether it is funny or not.
Absolutely.
Whereas no one watching that movie is like, I don't want to find it funny, but like the look, the feeling of it isn't like, ooh, is he funny? Is it, you know what I mean? It's like, do you know what I mean? Like it's clear what he's saying there, I guess. Yes. Which might be of the decision, because I think one of the reasons I've never wanted to watch King of Comedy as well is I've known it's about a stand-up wanting to be on like a stand-up thing. And I don't hate stand-up, but I kind of hate stand-up. And I just don't really like things that are kind of live. It just has a weird flair to it that I feel like isn't live. And I know that just the way stand-up is, where I'm like,
well, because
I'm walking down the street and that was crazy. And I was like, do people like this? How great's Melbourne? Everyone's like, yeah, Melbourne, this is where we are. And I'm like, I don't know, there's something about it.
Well,
it's not my cup of tea.
Being live and the act of being watched it just makes people different. It's strange.
That thing where it's like you can't properly record surveys or whatever because once they know they're being watched, they're behaving differently.
Yeah.
What's that called?
I mean, that's I don't know.
It just isn't.
Yeah. No,
I remember
exactly
hearing that in biology or science class.
Even with like measuring atoms and things. Apparently, just the fact
the atoms like they're filming us.
No joke. I remember reading something about it recently.
I don't know enough about atoms.
Just merely the act of observing the universe means that the universe is different because there's an observer.
Well, yeah, man. The way
we're processing time differently to a bug. A bug is processing time. A fly lives for a day. So it's processing all this information at an ultra fast speed, and it's moving around, and it sees the world in a completely different lens.
Yeah.
And we can't even process a fly's life because it's quick and it's over and it's done with and it's reproduced and it's on. Yeah? Or like a butterfly which lives for 2 weeks. Like we can't comprehend this, and they can't comprehend us, and we can't really comprehend a tree which lives for hundreds of years and grows slowly, and it's all of our perspectives of being able to view and react with the world are so different.
Yeah, no, it's so different.
I think that's what a lot of these movies are saying too, just the perception. Go on.
That actually brings me to what I was trying to think before, but maybe like fucking 5 hours ago when I was trying to think of the thing. One of my favorite things in the Joker is just him. I actually think I was saying this, but he was like, you don't think about what it's like to be me in my shoes, and it's a very big thing to say, but it is also really true in terms of like any kind of disagreement, any kind of situation you have. It is hard to just think about the other guy's shoes. But I think that was one of the true things in Joker that really made me like snap with like when he's doing his speech at the end where he's like, crime, everyone's shit, the world is shit, and like part of me is like, oh, maybe you're shit, maybe like, not that he is shit, like he's not presented that way, but it's like when someone bitches like that, it's very like, hey, maybe get off your keyboard and look around, and if everyone's like this, maybe they're not like that. You know what I mean? It was just, absolutely. But then he starts kind of relating it more to like generally, and it starts being less like me. Well, he is saying me, but I feel like it becomes more broad. Where it's like, if someone like me was dead on the street and I'd killed them, you wouldn't have given a fuck.
Yeah.
And that is true, because that stepping stone of like the rich looking down the poor. I think Parasite does it fantastically as well. It's like the rich looking down the poor isn't always just evil. It just is. They're just in different shoes. And often you just don't think about the other shoes, you know? Like, you don't think about that necessarily. And I think his twist of that is very, like, real. And then he's like, what do you fucking get if you cross a fucking society? Because I think that whole movie, in terms of, like, does it really work? Is it using elements? All these things. For me, when I watched the movie and it got to that bit, halfway through his speech, I was like, ooh, bit like when you're yelling about things maybe, and then it really at the end he's like, you know what you fucking get when you when you have someone who's mentally ill and you have a society who doesn't give a fuck, you know what you get, cunt? You fucking get what you deserve. And you know what, fuck Robert De Niro, he fucking deserved that, because despite the fact we haven't talked about this, but the fact they filmed him in that fucking show is like, they wrote this and went, oh fuck, we said in the 80s, oh fuck, we don't care, just have the scene anyway. Retarded, doesn't make any sense. Really silly, just completely insane. The idea that someone's filming in the 80s is such a now thing. What cost someone? What are you talking about? No way, man. Maybe I'm wrong, but no way, man. No way, man. Don't know what happened to my voice. No way, bruh. But the just his like passion, the way it builds, and then because in that scene he goes on that show to kill himself. But he gets there, and it all builds up. And Robert De Niro is like, hey, man, you're a self-pitying guy. And I'm like, hey, he's kind of right. You are kind of self-pitying. But then he's like, fuck you. Not everyone is awful. And I remember being like, Robert De Niro, you're a little bit awful. And he's like, calls him up on it. He's like, you're awful. It's like, how am I awful? Like, what do you mean, Robert De Niro? What'd you bring on this guy? You brought on this guy to make fun of him. You put him on, despite how they had, you put him on to mock him. You did not think about the fact that he is also a man who puts on shoes. You didn't think about those shoes. Using the shoe thing too much as a metaphor, but it's like he didn't. He just didn't put those shoes on and imagine what it would have been like to be presented on this show and just mocked. And he doesn't even care. He's like, call me Joker. Love that, but he's like, for one thing, Murray, would you call me Joker? Love that so much. Such great just delivery and just everything about it. And I feel like that's when he finally gets into the delivery of it. But he says that because he's like, you called me a Joker. And Robert De Niro's like, did I? Sure, whatever. He doesn't even remember, because you don't remember when you are that casual.
It was another night of the week and just another thing.
Another fucking dude he mocked because he's too above to even realize that he's doing that. I don't even think it's really like evil, even though it kind of is. I don't think he sees it that way. Not because, but almost like ignorant bliss. Are the right words? Yeah. Yeah, and the way, And so yeah, at that moment, that build, and then he goes, you know what? I'm going to direct it right on you, bro. Bam! You're going to get what you deserve, and he shoots it, and it builds, and then the crowd freaks out, and then he's kind of there, and he kind of loses it for a second because he's like, oh, he shoots him again, he drops the gun, and then he goes up to the camera to say something. He's like, and then it's over. But like, I think just, I don't know, for me, just like, yeah, whether or not all the elements play, work, the girlfriend, very weak, the newspapers feel like, the Batman stuff, I could probably take a leave. There's a bit where the little kid like slides down on the pole, and I'm like, because of Batman? I have to presume that you put that in because Batman slides down a pole at some point, just because it feels so weird. Like, there's just those little things where I'm like,
It's one of the most like hard movies for me to grasp and kind of articulate what I even think of it, because I felt like I've gone back and forth, and I think things are brilliant, and then I think things are really like shallow, and then I think maybe both are true at the same time. And is it more of the actor propping up the material, or was the material all there, and did they discuss it all and flesh it all out? And
did they know what they were making? Because Todd Phillips, the director, made some maddening things after the movie came out, which makes me feel like he has no idea about, like, there's no way someone who says that, but it could just be all publicity, made the movie that I think is as good as it is, because I think it's fucking sick. I think it's a really great movie. I think because it's the joke and all that stuff, it just has more baggage.
Yeah.
That for people like us, especially that love the Batmans and that kind of stuff, it adds more, because it's like, there's that Batman, there's a Scorsese, it's just so much stuff.
It's so many things.
It's not like Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla, which is just a story about a man who's obsessed with the girl on TV, and he thinks he meets her, then twist, he didn't. World crumbles, beat the shit out of a drug dealer that ruins his friend's life. Yeah. You know, that story, we have not talked about it enough. I would probably love to just do that with Cats of Blues at another time, really.
Absolutely.
Just we should talk about this off air. But like, just but that is, if we're going to compare the others, King of Comedy is tight, very tight. Taxi Driver, I probably could find ways to piece it all very tightly together. I feel like he's a bit more muddled. Joker is proper muddled, but I love it and think it all fits. And his life and his brain is muddled, so I think it totally just jives, you know, like weird music, but then it plays, you know, just the way it all jives in. Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla is fucking tight.
Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla is the thing making me think Joker isn't as good as it is.
Because Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla is fucking perfect. It's fucking fantastic.
It is on its face. You can tell, like, the cinematography, the little details, all those things aren't as refined as in Joker, of course, because it's not a $50 million film.
And it's shot in Australia, so every camera we have seems to have that lens where it's like, you could have shot this. I'm like, is it just because I'm in Australia? Like, something about it where I just like the start, I was like, oh, he's in a post office. I'm like, oh, I've been in a post office, this looks the same. But this doesn't feel like a movie.
The movie hits the beats better than Joker. It executes it better than Joker. I mean, what it is fleshing out and exploring, it does better, and that really is what threw me. I think I was really on the Joker train. Really on. I walked out of the cinema, I saw it with my partner, like when it came out, and I said, I really think I love that, and she said, I think I did too, and we just stood there and talked about the movie for half an hour, and then
we just stood there in silence.
We were kind of walked out in awe of what it was, because I guess I don't know what I wanted from it, and then I came out and I'm like, oh, it's a comic book movie wrapped in a mental illness movie, wrapped in a retelling of some 70s and 80s Martin Scorsese things, wrapped in
proper character-driven,
wrapped in a comic book.
Yeah, which is,
and it's like insane, all of these things that you would never think to put together, and not all of it is perfect, but it all, I mean, again, watching the movie, I was as enthralled at the end when he's on Robert De Niro's talk show, and I was in, and nothing else in the world. I wasn't thinking about anything else but the movie. And I mean, if that isn't a testament to it working, I don't know what is. Yeah. And they all kind of did it for me. I was in all four of these movies.
I love all four of these movies, like, so much that I was like, man, I must really like this story. Lonely man is lonely and trips out sometimes, and you're like,
there's a truth to all of these that I think if you added them all up and divided them by 4, you did a little division.
If I put them all into my calculator, did a few, scientific things.
You've got a universal truth of humanity, isolation, mental illness.
Yeah, loneliness no good.
Yeah.
I watch these 4 movies, I'm like, loneliness no good.
And it manifests in all these ways, and
different ways. And the way that, like, also, like, bottling up, like, angers and fears, because Taxi Driver and then Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla both have the ending of man just snaps and attacks, but happens to attack something that is worse, that is evil, essentially. Like, Harvey Keitel is a fucking evil pimp, and with children sex workers, and I don't know, the Australian
it's
guy.
Very black and white.
Yeah, and the Australian guy is a fucking monster. Best line in the movie where it's like, "Give me a cone, you cunt." And I was like, "Oh my god, this is so Australian." Also, it was so funny because we were watching these movies, and it's like I wasn't like Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla because of his dark city underbelly, but it's also set in like the dark city underbelly of Melbourne. But if you look at like the two New York movies and then Gotham, which is essentially New York, and just the rich, expensive American way they built it, and this one is like he just got like an ice cream van and put it under a bridge and got one. Yeah, he's like got one guy in like jeans to like stand there and look a little shifty by a bridge. It's just so like
it's the Australian.
It's so
yeah.
Oh, it was just like, man, that.
It's a real contrast.
It was a real contrast. Like, which is funny though because both movies end with like violent, brutal murders of these underbellies. But in Taxi Driver, he's got a gun, he's shooting, and everyone's shooting each other. Everyone's blood exploding. It's horrific and really violent. And then the other one, he just grabs like a heavy hammer, because then the other guy isn't shooting back into him. He just goes up to him, he walks up, and he hits him once. He's on the ground, he's dead. He just keeps bashing him, but he's dead already. Like one hit, and it's just such a different violence and a different underbelly. But it's the same, but just because one's like New York, and the other one's like Footscray or whatever. Australia's where you just grabbed a crowbar and beat him to death, because that's how you do it here, I guess. Like it just felt such an interesting way of like it's all the same thing, but it's so so different. I also think that Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla knows exactly what it is the whole time. And say with something like Joker's a little bit more muddled because like a lot of the things feel like the stuff that's brutal towards him is like, it's proper brutal, man, because like he's got this mental health thing with the laughing, so it's quite an obvious mental health issue. Yeah. It's quite there, you know.
It's in your face, yeah.
The woman on the bus is like, doesn't want him like interacting with his kid. It's just a kind of brutal thing where you're kind of like...
I want to, that just touching on that I feel like didn't work for me the second time. Yeah. Mate, I don't even know if I really thought about it.
Do you mean just the scene with the woman on the train or bus or whatever?
Yes, maybe they made her a little too unlikable and a little too... I mean, there are people like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I got that the first time.
Maybe if you made her just a touch more empathetic, but still rude... And still standoffish.
Understood it like a tiny bit, like a twinge of her face that you're like, she gets it, but she's still like, ew.
It just took me out a little bit too much. Like after she got the card, if there was just a touch of empathy and maybe then...
But then still...
And maybe she just moved seats. And that was...
It looked like there was empathy, but then moving seats.
Yeah.
I think the subtle nature of how they treat him was actually an issue I had the first time. I was like, everyone just fucking hates him for fucking kind of no reason. Like it's
a little too turned up.
I don't want to get into it, but I personally, from life situations, disagree. I think it's exactly how people treat people who are inconvenient in those kind of ways, and it's really fucking intense. But at the same time, it's just
no.
It's totally. But
probably
for him, I feel like I just get a bit more sympathy, and I feel more. Whereas in like Taxi Driver and King Comedy, these guys are just kind of like. She comes to her like, society sucks, everyone hates me. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, maybe look in and try and like work on yourself. Everyone needs to work on themselves every day. It's like, we're not all perfect. I don't know, I just feel less sympathy with Scorsese's people. But then they go proper like crime thing. Scorsese loves his crime things. They go crime and they get rewarded. Whereas in Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla, he's just a dude. He's got a limp. It's not really the same as like a laugh where you might just be like on a bus and suddenly you're laughing manically. Like that's what I love about the joke thing. It's like it's intense, but I don't understand. I understand, but I don't like sympathize with the woman who hates it because I understand she doesn't want some loony guy laughing at her son. He touches that kid's face later. It's like, don't do that, bro. Don't go into kids' mouths, like, you know. But also, don't dismiss him like that. Like he has a car. Like. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's complex, the way the world is complex. Everything is grey. Nothing is ever black and white. In Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla, it's a bit different in that it's just kind of like he's got a limp, which is almost nothing. And then with those video diaries that slowly delve into him. Man, the one where he's like talking about the first day at school and he goes to like the new school and he gets bullied for the limp and then his sister rocks up and we're like, sister? where's the sister now? You know, it's like, and she beats the shit out of him. He's like, you fucking touched my brother again, I'll kill you. And then he's like, she died like a year later. And you suddenly realize, I don't know, I had this like awful realization. It's like, if you're there to like defend someone like a bully, but then you leave, like he's like, she left high school and then died a bit or whatever. It's like, she's gone then. It's like, I don't know, it makes it almost worse, you know, defending him. It's like, oh, you got your big sister. I can proper see the real life awful machinations or whatever it is of like that. And the way we slowly delved into this man who is truly like lonely and like he doesn't there's nothing in it that makes me go like, not all the other ones, but there's elements where I'm like, oh, but this and that. So I can kind of see how this happened. It's just this awful man who's just been alone forever. And he's just like in this awful situation and everything. It's kind of the domino effect that Joker tries to do where it's like his girlfriend, but he's not his girlfriend and the domino falling apart. I feel it's the same way that he keeps going to the post office and that lady is really nice to him. And I kept thinking, he's a bit of an awkward, like kind of older man. She seems kind of interested in him or at least friendly enough. Where I was like, what is he going on? And then they're selling that scene where she's just like clearly coming down from heroin or ice, some fucked up drug.
Heroin, I think, yeah. At the end, because she's shooting up.
Right, yeah. And I just remember being like, holy shit, I forgot this wrinkle in the story. Like, she's a drug addict of some kind. Like, not that explains why she's nice to him, but it's just like, I now get this context of this character and like how their friendship has grown, and then she's not there anymore. And you're like, well, fuck, she got fired. Like, that's brutal. Stepping stones disappear, you know? It's so clever in the way it dismantles everything about his life. And so that when the movie star from Home and Away or Neighbours amalgamation, Round the Block or whatever it's called, like,
Round the Block.
I fucking love seeing every second. That was so much fun. But like when she rocks up, like nothing, like, I mean, the second time I found it kind of like, yeah, she's acting a bit weird. This is all a bit. But when I first watched it, it was just like, oh, there's a story. Something's gonna happen in a movie. It's a movie. So she's rocked up his ice cream store. That's the story. But like when that rug gets pulled, and everything descends and he's doing the screen, he's like doing the shoe shine. Also, there's a scene in that movie where he's shoe shining and watching TV. That has to be a reference to Taxi Driver where he does the shoe shine. Because it's a very long shoe shine scene. I just remember like, even this movie, which I didn't think was related, he knows. He must know. But then when he's got the video and he's like smearing, he's like, how can I be so wrong? And it's like deranged and he's completely lost it. And then later he's like putting up all the photos again. And then he's like watching the TV and then he smashes the TV and he just goes and has a mental breakdown. Then, mental breakdown, he's still kind of got the hair, he's all like, oh, but he's in the ice cream store, he's not doing anything. And then what snaps him over the edge is he sees, and we finally see, the villain who wanted the ice cream and called him a cunt, and he's the son that stole. That's the fucking drug dealer that's fucked his friend. It's a simple, small story. But then when you see that at the end, he then goes, he kills him. And the movie ends. He walks in the most incredible ending of the movie, he slowly strips off his clothes, embraces his true self in this horrific moment of just realizing I'm done now.
This is me.
This is it. This is me, naked and all. And then that whole build, like, I don't know. Yeah, let's talk about that. It's with Joker and even a little bit of Taxi Driver. I think you could probably convince me, but maybe I'm just saying that because it's Scorsese and I expect it to be, you know, people love it as classic. So that doesn't really matter. It works or it doesn't for you. But Joker is super muddled. Even though I fucking love it, I think I like it more than Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla because of the decisions it makes. Or just the way, you know, the music and him dancing, just the choice to have dancing involved. I remember I saw a review and someone was like, too much dancing. And I'm like, well, you're wrong. You're wrong. If anything, not enough dancing. If the whole movie had just been him dancing in that bathroom, I would have been happy because I love that so much. So those little like things I love so much that I think I just like it more. But Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla is tight and perfectly written. And it is exactly what it is. And I think it's about 20 to 30 minutes shorter than the other three. And I think it's stronger for it. Not that the others drag in any way, but just, I don't know, a shorter 89-minute film and it works. It's just punchy. And there's not a second where I'm like, why am I in this post office talking to this lady? No, because this. It just feels so perfectly crafted. Whereas Joker, maybe just because it's a bigger movie and it can just throw ideas out. It doesn't, you know, they're not sitting there being like, well, we can't afford to shoot this scene if we don't need it. And this, you know what I mean? You know,
do everything.
Yeah, you know when you're filming something and you're kind of like, yeah, we can't shoot this, so you've got to figure out a way around it. And it's just that classic, like, budget constraints create. You know, when you hear about that Jaws thing, where it's like, Jaws wouldn't have been the movie we thought it was going to be. But even on big budget things, like the best scene in the Battle of Last episode of Thrones, the best part of that episode is not a reference to the Daenerys scene intentionally or anything. It was all completely accidentally crafted because they had to bury Jon under a bunch of bodies because they couldn't shoot with any extras because they ran out of money. And so they're claustrophobic for the scene and they drowned him.
Well, it's...
That's Michael Chapotnik and Jon Snow, the fucking actor Kit Harington, on set. As far as I'm aware. On set, like, I mean, they could meet him. Like,
and it's just like, we got 40 guys and no money.
No,
so
we have 3 guys.
Oh.
So we need to, we have nobody. So we couldn't get those wide shots or anything. So that's why it's shot from the low and there's like 2 guys just doing this in front of the camera, like chaos. And he's just like, oh. And they probably have more guys. And but the budget, they couldn't do the horse stuff anymore. And it builds it down into this moment where he has to rebirth himself, which is the whole thing of the scene. The season wouldn't have worked for me if he didn't crawl out and choose to be alive. Because the whole season he's like, I'm dead. But that wasn't written in the fucking script. Because of course it fucking wasn't. It was well-crafted storytelling. But it happened. And I think the Joker, maybe, because it's such a big movie, which is ironic, because it's only got that much money, because he slapped the Joker on it, it becomes a bit more muddled and hard, and they're doing a few more ideas. I mean, I actually think that everything but the girlfriend, especially in the second watch, I was like, I like this. I really, really like this.
Nothing about it for me doesn't work. It just, I've seen it work better.
Yeah.
Literally everywhere.
I mean, I think that's also a really good thing. And one of the reasons discussing all films I think is really fun, because it's kind of like Joker and the movies that may have inspired it, but maybe not. And what is inspiration? Because, for instance, I just remember it was so funny because I was like, Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla, we should discuss it because of girlfriend, whoa, she's not real. And that comparison, one does it really well and is the crux of the story. And the other is just kind of thrown in. It's like this weird element that's just like, what?
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's like, even though it's inspired, obviously, by King Comedy and Taxi Driver, I feel like, I don't know, I really expected when I was going to watch them all to be kind of like, oh, I don't like the Joker anymore because it's these other 2 movies, but with the Joker slapped on. But I think that's like a simplistic way to look at it. And then when you really start delving deeper, they're all just movies and everyone's inspired by stuff.
Do ideas just get repackaged and recycled every 30 years or so? Are we on an endless cycle of digging up the past and morphing it into a package that we can feed to people who can consume it today? Because the cinematic language of films evolves as new movies come out. And I mean, even something as simple as the color grade in Joker, it's very teal and orange. It
is so different to the actual gritty. I feel like he just shot New York streets with those Scorsese ones. You know? Like, there's a scene where the 2 fans, like the lady and Robert De Niro, are just yelling at each other. And he's like, fuck you. And she's like, fuck you. And then, she's screaming. I think I can't remember how it plays out, but there's 5 or 6 New Yorkers or whatever. And they're all just yelling. And they're like, get out of the street. And they're like, and there's this one guy, he's all tattered or he's got piercings or something. I was just like, I mean, obviously he's probably got actors, but I was just like, he just shot this and they just got interrupted. Hey, I'm walking here style, they just felt like they shot on the New York City streets. New York just...
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No, it felt like in King of Comedy.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
It really did feel
felt
like
that. And there's that one scene in particular I remember just being like, I'm walking here, I'm walking here, just so and just, it was the gritty nature of just the street, and I was like, that's what I always forget about old films. What I love just watching is it doesn't look like they color graded it, it looks like he shot it, and the city just kind of looks shit and gross and nearly. That's also something in Taxi Driver that just briefly be like, I love it.
Well, I
fucking loved it.
They also, in Taxi Driver, just seem to maybe even intentionally underexpose images just to let it fall into black.
Right.
Much of the movie just feels so dark, and you've got these stark kind of neon traffic lights.
And they make the neon
lights.
so, I love neon, but it makes it so gross.
But everything fades off into blackness. Even the first shot is just steam and the taxi coming through, and I'm like, it's all kind of...
That was beautiful shot to start. It was the taxi, it was Taxi Driver. I was like,
I completely forgot.
As soon as that started, I was like, I think I'm going to like it this time.
Can we talk about the fact that Martin Scorsese says the N-word?
Is he in that movie?
Yeah, he's in the taxi. In the back, he's like, you see that woman up there?
Oh.
That's my wife.
Oh, wait, is that Scorsese?
Yes!
That actor?
Yes!
That character Scorsese? Oh, because...
He's also the director of in the King of Comedy, he's the director of the production. And someone says, you're the director, what do you think? He's like, I think it's great. And I'm like, that is so on the nose. He's actually...
So I actually don't know what he looks like young, because you say that...
He's got a beard, black beard.
I know the guy you're talking about, because I love that scene. I actually think he's a great actor. That scene was fantastic. But
he's so unhinged.
The weirdest thing with that is when you say that, I'm still kind of going, yeah, but like, Scorsese's always been 90, so you are wrong. But then I'm like, it wasn't a while ago, but that guy's like young. But then I'm like, that's why I find that movie weird. Like King Comedy especially, I watch and I'm like, Robert De Niro was 30. Like, he was for real 30 at one point. And he was like an actor acting. It's like when you watch Bruce Willis in a movie where he was trying. Like, watch Pulp Fiction. And it's the fucking weirdest movie to watch. Because halfway through the movie, Bruce Willis is just in it. And you're like, who is this actor? He's fucking sick. I've never seen him act like that in anything else. I'm sure there's a few that I just haven't seen. But he sucks. He's lost he just sucks now. He sucks so much. And I don't think Robert De Niro sucks. But man, I thought he was great in Joker. Until I watched these two movies this week. And then when I saw him in Joker, I'm like, he's kind of just there. Yeah. He's flat. I honestly was
he's
like...
He's just Robert De Niro in it all.
No, he's just
and
like...
not even.
No, he's just like, hey, I'm just here. It just feels so like... I don't know, right at the end though, when he's like, hey, why am I awful? And I was like, no, I like this, because he doesn't think he's awful, but he is. I like that end bit, but when he's just there, he's like, hey, I'm not sure. It's just, I don't know, when I see him in those younger movies, it's like, wow, he had this vibe that I just don't associate with him, which I found really exciting to watch. So of course, Scorsese's young as well. Oh my god, I have to rewatch that scene. That's so weird.
He's also in an earlier part, just in the background, sitting on a step as someone walks into a building. And he almost barrels the camera from my memory. What? I remember watching, I can't even remember what part it might be when he sees Betsy, or he's looking at some woman or something like that. And he's just sitting on the step. But I never realized how much Scorsese put himself in his films. Yeah. And I just thought it was funny that both him and Tarantino inserted themselves into maybe their most famous movies and both drop the N-bomb.
Yeah, wow.
Because Tarantino does it in Pulp Fiction too.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Tarantino's is kind of like, I feel like it's almost different. It's not like at one time I said that. It's like, that's something he loves to just put into his movies. I mean, I'm probably not the guy to talk about that, but I think, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Tarantino, but I love that he's just like, well, I don't know. This is how people speak, and maybe it's bad, but maybe this guy's not a nice guy.
It's a fucking movie.
This is how the guy's gonna speak.
You're creating a fiction, and you need to have characters that are both unlikable and likable.
And it always emotionally, like every time I have a discussion with someone with Django Unchained, it's like that will be brought up, and it's like, well, he's getting you talking, he's getting you feeling, and he gets me feeling like these people are real because they treat the black people in the movie like shit. And they talk to them like shit, and they use all the words where people are like, you can't say that. Well, these guys are saying because they don't give a fuck. It says what it says. I think that's really good. This is totally off point.
Well, you can't... I mean, people who think Quentin Tarantino is racist is just ridiculous. Because, I mean, the whole motivation for Django is literally him wanting to give young black kids a Western film like he got when he was young.
He picked World War II, then the next thing he did was pick, like, slavery. You know what I mean? Like, it was the second one he picked. Then he went to Hollywood. Yeah. You know, he's picked all his favorite things. Like, I don't know. The way I phrase that is weird.
Yeah,
you know, like I was like, that's not what I meant. But it doesn't like. He loves World War II. I'm saying Tarantino loves Nazis. That's what I'm saying. Leave that in. Oh my god! I need to be careful what the words I say are.
He loves Nazis and slavery. All right.
Oh, I did not mean to say that.
I'm Charles Manson.
Yeah. Yeah. God damn you, Tarantino. You monster. Yeah.
What's your favourite of the four?
King of Comedy did blow me away. I was like, oh wow, this is fucking sick. But like, it's probably Joker, man. Like really, it's just the little choices, like the music score. Like, what am I going to do on my drive home? Am I going to put on the radio, or am I going to put on my fucking phone the Joker soundtrack? You know the answer. It's going to be the good music that's not going to make me angry. You know? It's just the emotion that it can, like, draw from me. Like, the way that first dance, when he gets into the bathroom, it's painful and slow, but I can feel, like, the way he just articulated his feelings through a dance. I thought it was so unique and different. Like, he didn't sit down. I mean, there is a scene where he sits down. He's like, I've done some naughty things. Maybe I don't feel too bad. Woo-hoo-hoo. He has that scene. I make it sound shit. I love that scene as well. And that guy's kind of like, oh, wait, what, bro? I love that scene so much, actually. That actor's awesome as well. I don't know what he's in. feel like every little part of the Joker has just got... Like, the Boardwalk Empire, like the brother from Boardwalk Empire is the cop.
Oh.
Just little things. Like, everyone is a big... Actually, there's a lot of Boardwalk Empire guys. The big guys are from Boardwalk Empire too.
I know the guy in his little clown studio. One of those is Brian Callen, who's I listen to his podcast quite a lot, The Fighter and the Kid. He's a funny guy. All his friends roasted him because he talked about being in this movie for so long, and he was in like one in the mirror.
Mark Maron's in it.
Very quickly.
But just like that. Yeah, there's all the small roles are very big. I don't know if that's just Todd Phillips is like all his hands in Hollywood.
He's also, I think, gets along with comedians a lot. So
Well, I don't know him personally. No, I'm just like. I feel like for some reason I don't love him as a person just because like the comments I feel like he said after the movie, but he got the press in, he got $1 million, so maybe it was all just for show. Maybe he's like, comedy is dead, you're all too woke, just to get people to watch.
Oh, is that what he said?
Oh, he said something like, I made this movie because I couldn't make a comedy because woke culture has killed comedy. Just like big things.
Well, the opposite is true.
Woke comedy just changes, man. Like,
but wokeness has made comedy like risky again. I mean, I watched Dave Chappelle's new special, and I was like, these jokes wouldn't get a laugh 10 years ago because they're so tame by 10 years ago standard. Now because everything's been like. There's so much tension, and everyone's so scared of what they can say
about those jokes and stuff.
So he comes out and just.
And this came out like that Dave Chappelle thing was that's the perfect reference. So that came out just the same time he said all these things. But I remember hearing it and being like, I don't know, man. I mean, just before, I misquoted what I was trying to say about Tarantino and said he loves slavery. You know, I implied the wrong thing, just saying words, because I'm going through my thoughts. And, you know, so I can't imagine you've got all these cameras, all these people flicking lights. You're not in the comfort of your own home with friends. You've got all these things, and you're suddenly like, you know, you're having a bad day. You're sick of this work. I mean, who might be?
But you got to be careful of how the media spin this shit as well, because.
Oh no! There's we could get into that, and that's another 5-hour podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
But what I found just interesting is that, like, I remember hearing that and being like, all right, sure. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I heard about it, you know what I mean? Like, and so maybe someone who wasn't going to go see the Joker hears that shit, it's like, what the fuck's this guy talking about? It gets the conversation going, and this movie made all the fucking money in the world. And that is amazing, because if this guy had made a mental health movie, like if you told me there's this movie about this, just there's the things that would be in this movie, and then be like, made $1 billion, because the other movies that made $1 billion are kind of, I don't know. Avatar is kind of baffling, but it's also kind of not, because it just did a thing. It was a spectacle. This movie's not a spectacle. It's not a Toy Story.
No,
it's not
opposite.
a Titanic. It's
a character study. It's a weird little...
One of the things I want to end on, because I think it's in terms of just the persona. So I have a mate, and he hasn't seen the Joker. And I was talking to him, and this week I hung out with him most nights this week, and each night I'd come back and be like, I saw King of Comedy. Have you seen this? And he really, really liked King of Comedy. He hadn't seen it for a few years though, and when we started talking into it, he was like, they don't make movies like this anymore. I'm like, that's not true at all. Maybe they don't make big budget movies that you might see in a cinema.
Yeah.
Unless they make a Joker movie and they slap an IP on it, which I just think is the final fascinating thing, because it's like...
Is that where we are now?
Yeah, maybe it is, but it's like those intimate character-driven stories aren't the big ones we see on the screen. So the fact that he was able to get this story, modeled or not, I don't think it really matters. It's like, he got a story about this on the screen. This movie is, like, at its core, I think, about mental health and just how we treat those people. Because it's just a man who literally has got a scene where he's like, who's going to pay for my medication? And she's like, they don't care about you. They don't care about me. I kind of love that scene, because she's like, they don't care about anyone, but she's also like, I don't know, it's like, hey, psychologist, who cares if they don't care about you?
Yeah.
Fucking shut up. Shut up for a second. But it's like, she's making the point though, it's like, they don't care. They don't care about the little guy. What can I say? And it's like, those things are like, yeah. I love the Joker movie. I really, really like it. I think it's fucking sick.
I don't know if I feel better or worse about it than the first time I watched it, but I mean, it's given me a lot to think about. I think it has reshaped maybe some of the perceptions that I've had about mental illness, and it at the very least got me thinking about these ideas, which is more than I can say about a lot of movies that come out. So
yeah, I think that's the thing.
The fact that everyone
really...
I caught up with people who I mean, aren't even really into comic book movies, but they went and saw this, and they were talking about the ideas in it, and they were thinking about it, and they were, I mean, yeah.
I was just going to say, maybe if it felt fully formed and just tight, the way Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla was like, I see what you're trying to say, fully. With Joker, it's like, ooh, you know, with like its ideas, and maybe it hasn't fully crafted into just this, but maybe this works better because
it gives you more to chew on.
Well, we're sitting here and I still don't know what I feel, you know? Yeah. Wait, no, I do. I love it, but it's, I don't know, it's... Yeah.
I might watch it again and walk away with something else.
With something entirely different, which is totally cool. You change your mind every time you watch something, but it's so like, I think it really creates a discussion. And I don't know if people, I don't know. It's like, it's so different the way that I felt. Like if I think about the other Joker movies that have come out since I've been alive, like Heath Ledger's Joker, like I wasn't like, oh, this or that. I was just like, he's fucking sick. He's all like, slams a pencil and the guy's dead.
But no one was having a conversation about mental health.
No. But that movie's these. I mean, he might. I mean, oh yeah. See, I just see a performance, a villain, a psycho villain. He's doing crazy stuff. He's walking away from the hospital and he's all like, and I'm like, what am I watching? What am I actually watching here? And he's like, you should like this suit. You paid for it. I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, how do you think about these smiles? And there's so much about like Heath Ledger's performance, in particular, that it's just fascinating, amazing, brilliant. But yeah, it doesn't make me necessarily go. I don't know. Like, there's that theory. I don't know. That some famous guy has posted it. Oh no, just some guy on Twitter. I don't know, who knows? Like, there was a theory that I remember listening to on a podcast. It was fantastic, and it was like, here's all these things about how he's probably in the army as an interrogator because of this scene with the scars, and this scene with the torture and the way he was manipulating emotions, and this scene where he's like, if one fucking army van explodes, no one gives a shit, but I kill one little mare, and everyone used insane, because dying in the army is part of the plan. Like, they craft all these things. I'll show you later, and you'll be like, oh my fucking god. He is from the army. That is how he got his scars. This all tracks. So there is some stuff you can discuss with that, but it really is just a villainous performance being villainous.
Yeah.
And this Joker movie, and that's why I think maybe I'm kind of like, is it the Joker though? Because he's not like a villain. Like in this traditional sense, I think the Joker is an irredeemable villain. He's a fucking monster. Nothing in the anything I've seen in the animated thing or the comics or the movies I've seen, like the animated ones, it's like nothing about me goes like, oh, like I see his side. You know, he's kind of way beyond
But isn't that generally because we don't see the Joker's origin?
Yeah, I mean...
So that mystery, like what makes Heath Ledger's Joker, one of the big components that makes it so, captivating is that we don't know where he comes from.
Yeah, no,
he is this pure chaotic force and there's no explanation. And,
yeah, we don't know how he got there, yeah.
And this is the
little
complete,
opposite, yeah. We get to
reverse.
like the start of what could be.
Yeah, is this the path that leads someone to follow pure chaos? And do we now believe that this character becomes or is like the Joker?
The Joker. Yeah. I think if you were to imagine the universe without Bruce Wayne because his fucking parents had to go strong at the end, don't think that's necessary at all. But
I think they just should have had them walking into the alley and left
when I rewatched it, they're walking and I'm like, I remember. And then he shoots them both, and then there's a shot where he just rips the pearls, like pearl explosion shot. And I'm like, I don't actually remember any of this. I remember it being the alley shot and that being cringy enough. I was like, oh.
I think had they
alley would have been really nice
because most of the audience wouldn't have got that. I think, like even I mean, honestly, my partner was like, huh? What was that? And I was like...
right, yeah. See, that's the issue you have with something like that is you have the Uber fans who are like, it's too obvious, be subtle. And then you have the casual viewer who's like, I don't know this.
And I'm like, you've seen his parents die so many times, but how do you not remember? But
they don't care.
No.
It's not...
Also, I feel like it's probably the worst parent...
Bruce Wayne parent
death scene ever.
I'd have to rewatch...
In a movie that looks... so good.
Oh yeah, no, it's
they're like, oh, we got 3 minutes to shoot this. Let's get it done.
It was it could have been a pickup though, you know.
It looks like a pickup.
Like it totally could have been. I feel like
put that shot of them getting of him being shot and the wife getting shot next to just that shot of the Joker standing in the door frame looking up with his white face. And I'm like,
I don't want to.
These aren't the same movie.
I don't want to.
They're not.
No, yeah. It's
just a flat two shot and.
It's weirdly framed. It's weirdly staged.
There's no drama, and maybe that's what they're going for.
Oh yeah.
Maybe they just wanted to, because then you've got Zack Snyder's like super cinematic, and the pearls.
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, close-ups of the. Yeah, you don't want to do it like that for sure. But I think this movie, you want it to be the walkaway, the implication, and I think because it's a Joker movie that it's only really a Joker movie for people like us. They're like, oh, and then notice all these Batman things and are like, hey, Thomas Wayne's kind of evil in this. Why? He's not really like Thomas Wayne at all. All these little things. People don't have that if you're coming into it. So you could just have them walk in the alley. And that would just be enough. You know? We would know. They might not know, but it doesn't.
I think I have the ultimate question to cap this off. But
oh my God.
Now that I said that, maybe it's not that good. But do you want the Batman follow-up in this universe?
Oh yeah, absolutely not. No? Not even for a second. I think that would undermine what I think this movie is hopefully going to do for comic book properties in general.
Which is a one-shot thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Make a fucking insane movie about this crazy man with frozen ice powers. Make this movie, but with Mr. Freeze. Like, for real, bro. Like, the Batman anime series has a great double part. I'd love to see it as a movie. Like, really, like, real. Make it real. But, like, yeah, make it real where it's using just themes and ideas, but you've just painted an IP on it because... I don't know. We're all going to go see it. And I don't know. You're going to get all these people involved who want to work on it. Clearly, like how Joker had...
But then aren't you saying... aren't you answering my question in that...
no, what did I say?
Well, you said, take the idea, make it whatever, and then paint the IP on it. What if they just did that again? And they... made the Joker follow-up with the Batman movie. What if the next...
But would you have... Jacqueline Phoenix's Joker in it, or are you just saying a movie in the universe? I don't want Jacqueline Phoenix to ever appear again.
I mean, if I made the follow up, I make this movie with Batman as the villain.
Oh my God.
I completely flip it on its head, which is what the first Joker movie was it flipped. Make Batman the bad guy, and now we're still following our central character. We're still following him through, but now it's 20 years later, and Gotham is being ripped apart and at its near end, and all of this turmoil has bubbled up to the point that there's a Batman in this world now, which is fucking insane. Yeah. But approach Batman the way they've approached Joker, and it's you know what I mean? Like, keep it in this.
So tackle Batman with his mental health problems he clearly has.
I mean, fucking do it.
No, you know what?
Paint your IP on it. It doesn't have to be a big spectacle action fight at the end.
All right,
Make it a psychological drama about a guy who's like, his parents were ripped away from him in this horrific thing, and he's just lost his own mind, and now he's hunting these people in the dark of night.
Like a monster, dressed as a fucking monster.
And make it brutal and real and surreal and all these things that the Joker was for Batman.
The Joker movie has 2, maybe 3 moments of violence, and they all disturb the fuck out of me.
Yes.
Because they feel so horrific. The guy who plays the dwarf, when he's just like, Arthur, why? What are you doing? It's just his pain and just horror and shock and confusion.
That makes me feel sick.
It does, because it's, from his perspective, he doesn't know what the Joker's done yet. So it's so like outlandishly violent and out of fucking nowhere. It's really painful. And then when he shoots him at the end, like that, like it builds up and it's like, and it's fucked, man. I'm just imagining that, but Batman going on like killing a criminal, but me feeling not the fuck these characters, bam, bam, bam. You know, like Batman and Superman shit movie, but great. I mean, I love it. The warehouse scene where he's just punching guys and he's like a block and shit. Someone shoots him in the back of the head. And he just, it's full comic booky insane stuff where he's just doing Batman-y stuff, and it's really intense.
I think you stripped the Batman down like they stripped the Joker down.
I'm just imagining him beating up a criminal and then it like snapping the neck at the end, and me just leaving the way I leave the Joker movie, being like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh my God. Every week we keep coming up with better Batman movies than we like, and I know that if we tried to sit down, we probably couldn't crack it straight away, the way I feel like in my mind it's already been cracked. But, okay, I guess when you said the Joker movie sequel, I just imagine, like, I don't want to see Jacqueline Phoenix, but I love the idea.
I don't want this again.
I
want something so...
But that is so amazingly different. That would be pretty wild.
psychological horror, Batman villain,
The best
Joker going about. Obviously, there's a big time gap, so things have moved on and changed and shifted. And
you could have old man Joker as well, like the way that in the Dark Knight Returns, where he's like old man Joker in the insane asylum. I really like that visual as well.
Like I'm wait 20 years to make it too.
I was just gonna say we're getting this Batman, which I'm still really excited for because I just hope they put in like 40 villains and have them just be there constantly instead of having henchmen and just.
Yeah.
But then again, I know this movie will not be what I want. It can't be. But I want things to be perfect with Batman. But I'm just thinking, but in 5 years we'll have a different actor playing Batman. In 10 years we'll have another one. So in 20 years we could come back to this Joker.
Yeah, revisit it.
And I'll still be alive in 20 years. This is all good. It's all great. I can wait. Yeah, another I think you've changed my mind a little bit, but just in the.
But because it's probably not what the immediate thought is to do a sequel.
Yeah,
it's so wild. Like, yeah, you have to do something just
straight away with Jacqueline Phoenix, or you're not. Yeah, like they're gonna. I think they said they wanted to do Joker 2. Like they announced that at some point recently.
Well,
and I think that they went, I don't know.
I'm glad it's him because he will only come back if it's worth it.
Jacqueline Phoenix.
Yeah,
yeah, he's genius.
He's not going to come back and do like a shitty follow-up sequel that retreads it, and you know what I mean. He'll just be like, no.
Yeah, no.
And I don't think they would make another one in this universe without him. So I think it's safe.
Yeah, because his performance is like, you know, like it is stunning and captivating, and I love. Like I think I don't know. Before this, it was really just her and Gladiator. That I've seen him in. So I really haven't seen that much. I've seen clips of The Master from film school. My directing teacher absolutely loved it. I think it's called The Master.
I love him in Signs.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to discuss Signs.
Oh, I love Signs.
No, I have to rewatch
Everyone hates
I
Signs.
hate it, but
everyone says the same fucking thing about it.
Yeah.
We need to do an episode on Signs.
I would really like that, because that would be interesting. Because I can't look at M. Night Shyamalan clearly.
It's hard.
I actually hate every film he makes. Like ever since I hated The Sixth Sense, and everyone was like, "It's the best movie ever." And I was like, "No, it's a fucking gimmick. That if you see the gimmick because it's super obvious, the whole movie's trash." And guess what? All his films are like that, but worse.
This is
I haven't seen the Signs yet.
A good discussion for another time.
Nice. I think that's.
I think we got all our thoughts out.
I definitely got at least half of them out.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. And then like
tonight in bed, I'll be like, "Oh, why?"
I would be if I remembered anything we said. We said too much. I can't place what I've said. You could go through it and be like, "We've just said the first 7 minutes again and again and again."
On repeat. I can't release this.
What have we done? Yeah.
Next week, Parasite, Handmaiden,
very
South Korean,
very similar things about rich and poor people.
Ah, yeah.
Done very differently though.
Mm.
Yeah, there's only a few stories though, right?
Yeah. Just like 7.
Yeah, is that the thing? There's 7 stories. Yeah, I love that though. That makes you feel like everyone, you know. It's like, well, you know. I mean, yeah.
We're all just copying each other.
Yeah, what would you say? Like, it's the 5 people around you that create the things that you do.
Yeah, which I stole that statement off someone else recently.
Of course.
So,
and we picked these movies because they all related to each other, and I was also watching Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla. It finished, and I was like, I forgot that this final scene where he walks naked, I took and used in my short film that we made together, where the guy walks naked. Yeah, it's like everything just... But I didn't feel like I stole it. I just... was like, ooh, I like the elements of this and what it means to the character and all these things, and using nakedness rawly like that, and I'm going to do it too! And I shot it differently because I don't want it to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything is just things, and I think all 4 films are fucking wild and way more different than I think the general online people. It's like, this is just Taxi Driver and King of Comedy combined. It's nothing like those movies in a lot of ways. Or is it exactly the same?
It's an up-to-date, hip... it's mainstream.
I don't know if I'd call it a remix. He's all cool, like yes, that's a Joker man. Jared Leto on the other hand is hip. No, cut that last bit. I don't want that to be taken in any context out of the edit in any way. You fucking son of a bitch. Not gonna have to watch this fucking thing now to make sure you didn't leave it in. Damn,
You'll never know.
I'll never know. I'll never.
How long are we going? 2 hours? 3 now?
Oh my god, longer than Joker. We're getting up to almost 3 hours, so let's fucking just cut it.
Good chat.
Stop watching. I don't know how to end them. Like,
I'll find.
I don't think anyone knows how things end anyway. The video just stops playing and you're on to the next thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.